our YouTube and Facebook pages at The One Mic Show. And then follow us on Instagram at One Mic Show. We're also going to be taking your live calls at 202-683-4570 and then press *5 to speak. So I want you to save that number. Now, later tonight, we'll talk about the King Charles III Royal 4-day tour to Kenya. Now, there are those who say that the tour was a great success and a big opportunity for Kenya. But on the contrary, there are those that feel that we must first settle colonial injustices before fraternizing with former colonizers. Please let us know what side you are and what you think in the comment section below. We're going to be talking about that. Na bila kusahau, tumekuwa tukipokea mziki toka DJ wetu machachari mleta habari DJ Moshfire. Na of course tunadunda kule viwanjani na Mika Otis yake nambari 7 mgongoni. Akituletea habari za michezo. Moja kwa moja toka Kilimanjaro Studios, mimi mtangazaji na mwanahabari wako mpendwa Ali Badawi. Kwetu wananiita mteule na wengine mniite mjukuu wa Masai. Because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Si chagui, si kagui na si bagui. Karibuni.
Now, let's talk politics.
All right. Now, later tonight, we'll be reviewing a KRA rule that taxes personal items worth over $500 for incoming travelers at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. We'll also find out from our audience about their experiences upon arrival at JKIA. So please feel free to start typing in the comment section. We also want to know if Kenyans are just crying foul or if KRA is following standard international practices. And I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. It's Friday the 3rd of November, and we are streaming live from Kilimanjaro Studios outside Washington, D.C. Please remember to follow The One Mic Show on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And on panel with me tonight is Mr. One Mic Kamakawa. Sports anchor Mika Och might be joining us via Zoom. And our resident DJ Omosh Fire is live on the decks already, Kituroga Pale. And also not forgetting that our super producer is Mubelwa Bandio. And I want to take this opportunity to start welcoming our guests. I can see Slay Odwor, yuko pale kama kawa Slay, karibu sana. I hope the volume iko shwari sasa. I can see Brown Sugar is already in the building. And Dukundambuki is saying, every time I hear this song, I want to pause and give the dude water. Sasa tuambie zaidi. Tell us some more. Hapo umetuacha pending Nduku. Tell us some more. And then I can also see everyone else who's already tuning. I can see Afro-Jamaican Kaiser Soze is saying hello all. Karibuni sana. We will have a very exciting show today, just like we did last week. And of course, we have quite a bit to cover. So we are going to get started right away. And to get us started, we just have a quick update regarding the case of a Kenyan lady in Boston who'd been reported missing since Monday the 30th of October. Now, 31-year-old Margaret Mbitu's body was found in a car at a Logan Airport garage on Thursday, according to the Massachusetts State Police and the Suffolk County District Attorney's Office. A news report filed by Boston's CBS affiliate WBZ says that investigators are looking for her partner, 40-year-old Kevin Kanyethe of Lowell, who left Boston on a flight to Kenya. More recent reports indicate that Kanyethe boarded the plane at Logan Airport immediately after the incident, and authorities issued a warrant charging him with murder. Now, a former FBI agent in an interview with WBZ said that things look good in terms of Kenyan authorities cooperating to apprehend the suspect. Now, the former agent further confirmed that the FBI, through its international office in Nairobi, has already communicated with Kenyan authorities on tracking down Kanyethe and bringing him back for trial for justice. Now, first of all, before we get started, and on behalf of the One Mic Show, I wish to send condolences to the family, friends, and co-workers of Margaret Mbitu, and we are praying for speedy justice in this case. I want to get started here, and I'm going to start with Omosh Fire on this tragic story. Now, Omosh, as you get ready, Salimia, like the audience, law enforcement authorities on this particular case, they seemed very, very confident. The warrant of arrest issued indicates they plan to charge Kevin Kanyethe with murder. Now, we might have precedent on Kenyans who committed crimes in the past and fled being returned. Maybe your Fire, you can just talk to us a little bit about this and what you think about this case.
Can you hear me? So basically, in relation to this particular case, Uno can't hear us.
Yeah, I think there's an issue with Omoshe's mic. Or I don't know.
Mic check 1 2 1 2.
Okay, now I can hear you. Now I can hear
3
you. Omosh.
4
Yeah.
8 9 58.
Okay.
Yeah. So back to the extradition from Kenya. We've had cases in the past of folks committing crimes stateside and not necessarily murder, and actually being extradited back. I think the most recent one that we remember was for there was someone who had, I think either they had molested either an underage or was it an elderly or something.
But that
and
was
escaped to
that was an
Kenya.
American. Was that?
No, it was a
Okay,
Kenyan.
it was a Kenyan who was here in the U.S. and
Yes.
escaped to Kenya.
Yes, and they were brought back. Again, those sorts of cases, and of course, murder is worse, right? So you would think that, and normally Kenya cooperates with the U.S. In cases like that. I think I could be wrong, but in cases where you have folks for a lot of the tax-related crimes that they commit, they come here, commit the crimes, and go back to Kenya. If they are found in Kenya, they bring them back, and normally the authorities in Kenya actually cooperate with them, of course, in conjunction with Interpol, so it's a whole other thing, and in a case like this one, I think basically to me, I think the U.S. is going to push hard to get this person extradited. They might even, it depends again on how they are looking at it. They may even, of course, obviously involve Interpol, but maybe involve whatever cops they have on the ground on the other side as well, because they don't want to set a precedent where people commit crimes in the U.S. and then exit to a country somewhere, assuming that they won't be pulled back.
Okay.
So that probably would be what's going to push them more than necessarily the crime.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And I think actually this was not this, of course, like you said, it's not the first time a Kenya, or rather the U.S. authorities are pursuing a Kenyan for fleeing to Kenya. There was that case in Baltimore so many years ago of a lady who was called, I think, Anastasia Olwatch, who was, I think it was in 2013.
Was she a caregiver?
Yes, she was a
That's the one.
caregiver.
Yes.
Yeah. She was a caregiver. She went to Kenya, and she was hounded back to the U.S. on charges of abuse to an elderly person in the year 2007. So this was 6 years later.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes that long to get the extradition.
Yes.
And I think the laws that Kenya has for extradition with the U.S. or other jurisdictions, they've made them easier for jurisdictions to get folks. So back then it was a matter of, okay, so now you're gonna go to court, and then you play the game of court, things are continued, this and that, and there's jurisdictional issues and so on and so forth. I think there was even the case of the guy in England. I think it was with some abuse-related things. I think he had religious, either it was a church or something, and that one went for the longest time before they were able to to get the guy either extradited or to even start trying to try him in the UK. So it again, all those relationships depend upon the country where the crime was committed and how much they push. But with the US, it seems like they actually have a very good relationship with Kenya when it comes to things like extradition.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that extradition law dates back to 1931. It was actually passed under the colonial government in 1931, and it was effected in 1935. So that's how long we've had extradition agreements with the United States of America, and I mean it's quite mind-boggling that we still have people who don't know that if you flee to Kenya, that's not a safe haven.
Well, this particular crime, unfortunately, and a lot of those sorts of crimes tend to be crimes of passion. So somebody may not necessarily think about those things. They just know that, okay, you know, this has happened and I need to exit, and where can I go where I figure is safe space for me, not necessarily safe space from.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And sometimes they maybe in their head they're saying, okay, you know what, at least let me go see my people one last time because, you know, nekanaapa nikubaya.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna welcome Uno Mike to the show. You know, like he's also been reading about this extradition agreements that Kenya has with the US. Uno Mike.
So, December 2022, 1931.
I thought you were talking about somebody I know.
So that is when the treaty was signed, but it was entered into enforcement on June 24th, 1935.
Okay.
And
Who was being extradited in 1935?
boss, that is an agreement between those two parties at that time. Who knows?
This is even before Israel came about. Okay, sorry.
So so it says here, to extradite a person from Kenya to the United States, the U.S. government must first submit a formal extradition request to the government. The request must include information about the crime that the person is accused of committing, as well as evidence to support the allegation. So if the Kenyan government approves the extradition request, the person will be arrested, brought before a Kenyan court. The court will hold a hearing to determine whether the person is extraditable. Is it extraditable?
Yeah.
Ali, which one is it? Extraditable?
If the person will be extradited.
Under the
Yeah.
treaty.
Okay.
So if the court finds that the person is extraditable, the person will be handed over
Sorry.
to the US. So they give examples over here, has been used to extradite a number of people over the years. In 2023, an example was Mansour Mohammed Surur. A Kenyan citizen was extradited to the United States to face charges of large-scale trafficking of rhinoceros horns and elephant ivory and heroin, or is it heroin?
Heroin.
Distribution. And then, of course, you know, like the case you mentioned about the lady who had abused an elder.
That was in
That
Baltimore.
lady,
Yeah.
that was in Baltimore.
Anastasia Aloch.
Huyo,
Yeah.
haraka upesi alijikuta huku.
I thought there was also something in Texas, or am I mixing apples with oranges?
No,
Yes,
so the one in Texas, and this is, you know, like what we'd also been talking about this week. Now, also this week, unrelated to this story, there was also a video that was circulating on WhatsApp of a man running over, you know, like a woman with a car.
Yeah.
It's an old video.
No. Yeah, but okay, I
Yeah.
know what you're talking about. That's
It's
not what
an-
I was talking
it's-
about in terms of this, but yeah.
Oh, okay, it's an old video, but people had tagged some text to it saying that this was a Kenyan, and it actually wasn't a Kenyan. So I think, especially in such sensitive situations, it's very important to verify information that just comes, you know, on a naked video with no citation of where it's coming from.
No source.
With no source.
And
and
make sure your
everything.
source is credible.
Yeah, so you see, like this case, for example, of this lady in Massachusetts, there had actually been flyers that were circulating around,
Right. Looking for her.
because
so she had been reported
She
missing.
had been reported missing. You know, before, you know, like the authorities unfortunately found her dead body
In the car.
in the car
At Logan.
at Logan Airport. So and the latest reports actually indicate that this gentleman Kevin Kanyethe, you know, left the country like right after. According to these reports, there's a lot of confidence when I was reading, you know, like the warrant or what media was saying about the warrants. It's like the authorities are very confident. They feel like they have, you know, like a smoking gun, you know, like on this guy. But like you said, there's a process that has
There's
to
a
be
process
followed.
that has to be
Correct.
followed.
Yes.
And I think also, if you guys recall, there's some guys from Mombasa, like the brothers,
You're talking about Akasha.
the Akasha brothers.
The Akashas, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
they were extradited, but remember they were not. They did not commit a crime on U.S. soil.
They did not commit a crime on U.S. soil.
That's the difference.
But the difference with them is that
But-
the crimes they committed had something to do.
They affected.
They're affected,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
So we're waiting to see what the process is going to be. Hopefully, you know, we
Yeah,
can actually even get into.
Then we have a lot of cases of that. Even
Yes.
What's this guy? The guy from, was it Colombia? The guy was the president former president of Colombia or whatever it was.
Or Philippines. You're talking about?
Or was the guy of Philippines? The
Yeah,
one who they brought and they arrested here and he was tried in Florida. Oh, well, was he ever tried?
The one who was married to Marcos.
Was it Brazil?
No,
Bolsonaro?
not
No,
Bolsonaro.
no,
In the Philippines president at one point
No,
in time.
Noriega?
It was Noriega.
He was
No,
not.
Noriega.
not the
Not
president.
Noriega was Nicaragua.
Nicaragua, sorry.
Yeah,
Noriega.
Noriega
yes.
was
No,
Nicaragua.
there was a guy either.
Yes.
One of the presidents.
Yes,
Mhm.
he was. It's that guy. It's Noriega.
Noriega.
It's
Yeah.
Noriega. Yeah.
Mhm.
He's the one who they brought Nini. The one you're thinking of is Ortega. Ortega's still in power.
Not that one. There's even Marcos. No.
No,
The
none of
the son, Marcos, the son is the one who's running and is also popular.
In
whatever
the
it is.
Philippines.
Yes.
Yeah, but Noriega, they extradited Noriega.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
by then he was not a president, right?
By then, I'm not sure. This was
Because
a
that
very
was
old-
during, was it Reagan's time? Or whose time was that?
We'll just do
I
a
think
quick
it was
Google
Bill
search.
Clinton.
Okay, yeah, we'll do a
I think it
quick
was Bill
Google search.
Clinton.
Yeah,
But yeah, so the U.S. They go after their people. So again, it's always how big is the crime and who's pushing. And in this day and age of social media and so on and so forth, if you make enough noise, guess what? They actually are gonna push.
but here's an interesting thing. When
No,
like
Panamanian Manuel Antonio Noriega Moreno
Okay.
was
So he's
extradited.
Noriega, but it's Panama. Okay.
By the way, even in France, he was extradited to France, 2010, sentenced to 7 years.
So the difference, when I flip this question, or if an American commits, or rather, if how did I want to put it? If an American has committed a crime
In Kenya.
where they're supposed to be tried in Kenya, but what tends to happen, like what we saw with that missionary who
That
was,
commissioner from Philadelphia, yes.
yeah, who was abusing children and
Accused of.
no, he was being convicted.
He was
It's
convicted.
no longer
He was
an
convicted,
accusation.
eh?
Yeah, he was convicted.
Oh, but
he was,
before
he was
sentencing,
convicted in the US.
he exited. Huh?
He was convicted in the US. So
Yes,
what
sir.
happened before? I mean, this report, of course, had been out in Kenya. The police were looking for him. But what happened is that US embassy officials picked him up and brought him to the US before he
Oh,
could be
they're the ones
apprehended.
that brought him?
Yes.
Okay.
The thing with the US, they tend to look out for
Their citizens.
their citizens, which is both a good and a bad thing, but they tend to look out for their citizens. So they actually picked him out of Kenya because, one thing that people don't know, like child abuse, anywhere in the world. If you're an American citizen, it is a crime inside America. They will arrest you. There's a law for that. So they picked him up and they brought him to the US, tried him. I think he got quite a number of years. I can't remember exactly how many years, but it was quite a long sentence. I think 25 years or something of that sort.
He's better in a U.S. jail
Yeah.
than he is in a Kenyan jail.
Yeah, and I'm also curious if an American committed a crime in Kenya and was not necessarily assisted, but fled to the U.S. Will America give up their own citizen?
Well, again, that goes back to the extradition treaties and or agreements that they have with Kenya, where it's the backwards.
It's
not-
vice versa.
Yes.
No, but the argument that we have.
But I don't think that they have equal salt. You get what I'm saying?
I think they do. I think they do.
I don't know, because if that's the case, then would that guy have been brought back?
Jamal got 40 years.
Yeah, he got
Either
40
way,
years.
but would he have been brought back?
Brought back to
The U.S.
The thing is, he did not come voluntarily to the U.S. U.S. authorities in Kenya,
Are you saying Kenyan
US
authorities turned him over to the U.S. to bring him back because he would have gotten a longer sentence here?
Now that I don't know, but I think in my own, and this is now my own opinion because we don't have facts on this, I think it's the U.S. authorities that just picked him up and decided we're going to have this kid tried in the U.S. But I think that these treaties are two-way, meaning that if as Kenyans we're going to be returning Kenyan citizens who committed crimes in the U.S. to the U.S., so the vice versa should also apply. But I don't think I don't know if there's any precedent of an American who fled to the U.S. and was brought back to Kenya to stand trial.
Now, let me ask. these treaties were signed, 1935?
Yeah,
So
in the
just
colonial
19
government.
whatever.
Yeah.
Isn't it time a revision is done, because times have changed? At that point in time, I'm thinking probably the offenses have changed, because you have to think about it like you've got cyber.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Fraud.
There's a lot of new crime.
There's a lot of new new parameters that need to be expanded. So, but is there the wherewithal of the Kenyan government to propose, to say, what, we need to revisit, restructure, or make amendments to the treaty to either add, or do away with probably archaic, because I would like to see exactly what the treaty entailed, or the contents of it, so that you can either remove some and then you can add more, because things have changed.
Things have changed.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing about the Kenyan Penal Code, and this is the part of the law that adjudicates on crime, or rather that gives sentences and prosecution is used on crime. The Penal Code is primarily from the colonial government. Most of what we currently use today comes from the colonial government. So even a lot of these funny laws that people accuse African countries of having, like, for example, like maybe anti-LGBT laws, all those came from colonial powers. None of those were African laws. And my thought process when we were getting the new constitution was that there was going to be a project to review, especially the penal code, to be compliant with the new constitution. But unfortunately, that did not happen. We still have the same penal code. The penal code that was being read in Vioja Mahakamani, for those who used to watch Vioja Mahakamani, that was the actual, for those who don't know, those were actual laws. They used to use the actual laws, those were the actual penal codes. Unasikia kifungu cha fulani. Those were the actual laws, and that's what was being used in Vioja Mahakamani, and that's what we are still using to date. And that's and I believe partly that's why we sometimes don't have a very fair penal code, especially to the people who are doing, like lower crimes. The people who are doing lower crimes, because the colonial government had a deliberate intent to want to severely punish people who are doing, like
crimes,
like
period.
Chicken.
Crimes, period. Because the lower ones were against them.
It was against
Normally
them.
it was against them. Like someone has gone to a farmhouse and stolen.
And
So
chicken.
So these ones were mainly to really, really punish the African.
Correct.
Yes.
Brutally punish.
Correct.
You can sort of equate it, well, not equate it, but you can draw a parallel, but it's not exactly a parallel to Jim Crow laws, right?
Correct.
Yes.
I could see that.
And I was watching again, the situation Rubukule Spice FM. They were talking about really looking at, and I think you mentioned that, trying to change, because some of the code, some of whatever they have on the books are just so archaic.
Yeah.
Very archaic.
Yes.
Like now, breaking wind at one point in time was illegal.
Yeah.
You know. And for slave, or for the youngins, breaking wind is kushuta tu fwa.
Yeah.
You mean farting?
What he said.
Yeah.
So a revisiting of that, is due. But again, like you said, sometimes you question, what exactly is. There's a. I think sometimes it's a wanting to keep the same to nyanyasa the have-nots.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
They have not such that you don't have a leg to stand on. Like you can't even go far. Like now, this thing of land issues that is going on, how you diligently do your work, you diligently do your investigation, you get title, but somebody has the audacity, the cojones, the mefira, to come and erect a fence around your property, and
or even send auctioneers
exactly
and crash your property.
And these guys are being mentioned. These are guys' names who are being mentioned in the investigation by KRA, by African Uncensored. And the question now becomes, what happens to them?
Nothing.
If you were to go and take somebody's kuku, awewe inje.
Yeah, we're injured.
Well, see, here is the thing that you have to look at. Those, like you said, the larger crimes. Who does the larger crimes?
It's the rich people.
It's the rich people.
It's normally those who are either in power, with power, or connected to power. They're the ones who are doing the larger
Ideally,
crimes because, again, you have to think about the access. Access to get to do some of those things. You either need to have capital, you need to have some sort of godfather, you need to have some way, path, or door that's that's open to you.
You need a myriad of avenues.
Correct. Now, you know, the guy who's living in Mukuruwanjenga is not. What's he gonna steal? He might steal cabbages on his way back from his Wochi job, or you know what I'm saying, from somebody's shop.
So those are punished severely.
Correct.
Yeah.
And those, so the lower crimes, and I think that the president had said that they were going to look at, you know, releasing those folks who had some of those to free up the jails, because the jails are loaded with guys who some of those sentences don't make any sense. And then some of the people who are even in there, it's simply because they could not pay the fine.
Now
And the fine could be sotano.
And here's another thing. Sorry, not even that. Like how even paying bail.
Correct.
They're trying to streamline, you know, because apparently before, you know, there has to be an order that has to be written,
Yes.
written down.
Yes.
And by the way, even before that order is written down, you first are chukuliwad, unapelekwa cell.
Yes.
Then the order is written, order is taken to the cell, then unachukuliwa from the cell, plus the order brought to the magistrate.
Yep.
Then you go through the process, and then maybe you're released.
So there's a lot of issues, you know, that need rectification, and I think it's also important to note that we just our legal system just needs a big overhaul, and I see a lot of comments here that are coming from those who are tuned in. Esther Mulusa, sorry nilikusahau. Esther Mulusa, welcome to the One Mic Show. Tell us what you think about.
Why did you say?
How can you forget it?
Yes.
No, I think by the time she joined,
Surely.
you know, like I'd
Did
already
she
read
did
the
she
names.
did she join after you were Nini, or it was
I think it was after.
you were reading backwards?
She has even written an inch over there, and
I think it was after, but I'm going to read all the comments. I can see here Ndukundambuki is saying, I remember the UK case, Pastor Dare. That was extradition.
Yes, that's the one. Yes, that
oh
was
yeah, the one for the
extradition,
toys. Yes.
And then Slay, regarding that unfortunate news from Massachusetts, she says, why not just walk away if things are not working? Why kill someone? That's another question.
You know, these, and it's so, I'm not justifying it, but when you look at crimes of passion, 99% of them don't make sense. They don't.
Yeah.
Because
they don't.
even if you see like someone who has been killed, amedungwa mara 88. Okay, so at the 38th one, you didn't realize they were dead or what?
Yeah.
I mean, they do not make sense in any which way. But when you fika that point where ushasema utaua mutu, you're at the point of no return.
Yeah, because you already had a weapon.
Like
You're at the point, you're going to come out. The guy who was killed by the Chileo who lives in Kibera. This guy, the Nairobi hospital
Or
controller
the
the
finance guy.
finance guy.
Yeah, the one who was
Yeah.
claiming she was 16 years old. I don't know how true that is.
No, she wasn't, because based upon like the investigation, like, you know, like they claimed that she was, but she wasn't when they investigated. She was not.
Yeah.
So
The one who was jumping over a wall like Spider-Man.
boss, she climbed. Watch her jumped. She climbed up that wall. Akapita zile barbed wire. What do they call that barbed wire? Zile waga round.
The electric.
See,
Saying
not
electric
the
fence.
electric one. It's the other one, the round one. That
The round
has,
one, yeah.
The thing is, alirukayo something. That thing, you know, it's not.
It's not a
easy
joke.
to-
It's very sharp.
I don't know how she did it, but
She seems like she's done it before.
I would say so. And she pleaded guilty even when she was asked, or you know, she was told like 3 times, do you realize what you're actually pleading guilty to? And she's like, yeah, she pleaded guilty to it. So sometimes you might say, well, maybe there's another story behind it. There could be other things behind it, and no explanation has been given as to why.
bro,
Okay.
there's a show called Snapped.
Boss.
Okay,
Again,
all right.
yeah.
Let me go back to the comments here. Slave Father says, do they submit after the person has been found or after? I think this is regarding, you know, like
The extradition. There's a process. It's a procedure.
Yeah,
I don't know if to recap it.
You get it. Yeah, go ahead and recap.
So the recap is simple. You know, the US is gonna put out a request. The Kenyan government is gonna get the guy, they're going to listen to the case, and if the case is worth the wait, chukueni mtu. But if not, they'll be like, you need to bring more proof or whatever.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then slave father says,
and I think it also depends also on the deal. Just like, in some cases, there've been places or countries, and I think there've been cases even in Kenya where somebody committed a crime elsewhere, and they said, okay, well, we'll try the person in Kenya.
okay, and I think it depends on the agreement. And
So,
Pablo,
so those have happened.
yeah,
before.
Pablo was talking about it here. We're going to read what he has to say. And then also Slay still says we need to pause on running with unverified information. That's regarding the video that was spreading, because it's become very rampant.
It's in everything. WNN media is just it's bad.
And it's one of those where you just see the video, and unfortunately, the always catchy line is a Kenyan man.
Kenyan man. Yeah.
Or
Kenyan woman.
Well,
Kenyan woman,
in this case, that one of the Kenyan man, right? This particular one had, prior to that, said either I think it was a Nigerian or whatever. So the last time that it was running, prior to the original,
So there was another version.
There was another
there's
version.
been other versions
On the same video.
of the same video.
Yes.
And we may end up seeing another version of this particular same video at some point.
A Jamaican man.
Because it depends on Nini, but the original person was actually Jamaican.
Because I fail to understand why it is that people are so quick, and that's the reason why those videos are usually tagged forwarded many times, because people get excited when they see those videos, and it kind of like triggers their biases.
Mshene.com.
Yes,
That Mshene thing, I'm like, man, guys, come on.
That doesn't help our community at all.
We learned a long time ago, and I don't know if it's because we've been doing this show for so long, and you really want to make sure that whatever information you're putting out there is verifiable, it's credible, and you even have a source. Literally, even if it's from authorities, you go even to their Twitter handle and see if they have said the same thing that other people are putting around in WhatsApp news media.
And the good thing nowadays, it's very easy to verify information. It takes 3 seconds to verify information. Anything that you're finding difficulty in finding it on Google is probably because it just doesn't exist. Don't doubt your searching skills. It's just because it doesn't exist. So we never want to mix, these fake stories with actually real things that are happening in our community, because it tends to, make people also now start having doubts about real stories. And then Ndukundambuki says, it sounds premeditated to me. That's the murder. And then she says, sounds like the type, if I'm not with you, nobody will, which is very dangerous, which is part of those crimes of passion. And then she further says they should put them in Kenyan jails, wakulwe na kunguni na chawa. Unfortunately, I think if it's tried in Kenya, if you have money in Kenya, there's ways of, circumventing the legal system, which is unfortunate, but it is reality. And then Pablo here says, extradition treaties are mutual, just like I thought. So whatever the US can do, Kenya can do. It's a mutual agreement. And then let me see. We see. Wow, there are so many comments.
They're mutual or equal.
Did you karibisha
There's
mutual.
a difference.
They're mutual. Mutual means whatever the other side can do, it's an agreement.
So it should be equal in stature.
Yes, it's equal in stature.
Okay.
If Americans can request for someone from Kenya, the Kenyans can also request for someone in America. And I think, that's what Pablo meant. And Pablo, you can maybe further clarify it for us. And then Afro-Jamaican says, I've only seen 3 people extradited from the U.S., and they all had something in common. And I think now this is extradition to Jamaica. Correct me if I'm wrong, Afro-Jamaican. And then Vic Juju, anasema, no, US politics will hinder extradition from the US. Also will play a part on early release from Kenyan authorities, prison to the US. Wow, that's a long sentence. Weka commas, na brackets, na full stops.
Maybe they don't know about Bodmas.
Yeah. And then Pablo says, good lawyers help one fend off extradition.
Correct.
And crimes in general. That's true. And then Esther Karibu once again, she says Kenya is still bound by archaic colonial laws like crown lands, land in Karen, Muthaiga, and other high-end suburbs still require the signature and approval of the King of England for any subdivision to take place. We have a long way to go. Even things like consent of unmarried adult women to travel overseas must be given by male guardians. These are colonial patriarchies.
I think they got rid of that one.
need to be changed. I mean, if they're still there, they're definitely not being
I think that one that she's talking about, for the one to travel, which I also goes with the one of IDs. Like a female in the household who wants to go get an ID, who's like basically over 18, has to get a male
guardian.
a male guardian, which would be either it could be your parent, it could be your brother, an uncle, or I think even your priest or something like that.
Or like Ali to get an ID.
Okay.
Oh no, Ali getting an ID is a whole other animal. that one is a whole other animal. You know hao watu wa kutoka kule chini, watu wa where they called
Korea.
Yeah, those ones.
Those ones.
Yeah, that needs a whole show. But the interesting one that Esther mentioned is that that there's some land, Muthaiga and other high-end suburbs still require the signature and approval of the King of England for any subdivision. There's some landing now.
So they used to have crown lands. I don't know if it's still there, because they've been trying to clean up a lot of those land related laws and things.
See, like
where like the land lease, land rates, land, all of that, where basically, so think of it this way: you have an apartment complex that's sitting on, say, 2 acres or so, and it has about, maybe it's a high rise that has 36 units, and each person who owns is a 1/36th shareholder of that particular
unit of that particular development.
Yes, because, and so now what would end up happening is you have a lease. They would give you a lease for whatever amount of years. Either it's tied into whoever originally had it, and normally the leases in Kenya were 99 years. They're trying to, it's seemingly looking like that they're getting rid of the leases now.
They used to be 9.99.
9.99.
Oh, yes, they were changed to 99.
I can't remember seeing the 9.99 and maybe the 9.99
in the old constitution.
Okay, and I don't remember seeing it, but I remember seeing 99 because I have a couple of titles that say that, and some say title deed, some say lease. So it all depends on where your land is, especially like, let's say Uko Ocha, those say title deed. Like you start coming into the cities, then you now have the leases, and that's where you pay land rent and land rate.
Okay, we're gonna try to learn more about those now. Afro-Jamaican says, please don't get me started on land. My wife is terrified. Afro-Jamaican, tell us why she's terrified, so that we can also learn.
Because they've been terrifically terrified.
Okay, and then Nduku says animal farm in the making. And then let me see. Slay says tunapenda kuremix these stories. I think that was in relation to those fake stories that sometimes Kenyans like spreading. And Nduku says the real story happened here in New Jersey. Yes, I mean, of course, it was verified that was actually something that happened in New Jersey. And I think in that Kenyan story that was going around, it was a Kenyan man in Texas, because
correct. Yes, they said it in the original story was in Texas. Yes,
I've realized these Kenyan man stories, they have traction, and then when you add Texas, they get more traction.
Legs.
And then when you add Dallas, even more traction. I think these people
do you add a red coat to it?
I don't even remember the red coat. I don't know where that video went, but
somebody needs to bring it back on TBT Day.
By the way, mulisalimia Brian Binyamu.
Brian Binyamu karibu sana. And then
asiseme names of Delaware, by the way.
Yes, and then Stephen Batty says land issues is really tough, and that's very true. Like land issues.
And every single day, man.
Have you guys watched that?
I haven't watched part 3. I've watched part 1 and part 2. That's what.
No, I've only watched part 1 and part of part 2. So I need
finish.
So don't be a spoiler.
I think if you see, me have done part 1 and part 2. Part 3, I wanna. After I watch those things, it makes me feel like I need to run to Kenya immediately and go to a land's office and tell them ebu mwende mufungwe server ndio nione kama hizo vitu zangu bado
and sometimes even to throttle somebody,
because if it used to be that you couldn't even touch the green card. Now even the green card is can be manipulated.
Yeah, everything is malleable.
I'm like, surely. Yes. How do you manipulate the green card?
Where?
Yeah. And then Steven says people should watch all and catch up with Spice FM issues, and also Slaves reminding us to catch up. Yes, we're going to catch up, and we're going to come and have that conversation again. And then Esther Mulusa says 999 years long lease slipped in by an African-American, Thurgood Marshall. He messed Kenya up in favor of the colonialists. So, Esther, you need to give us a bit more meat and bones.
Where was Thurgood Marshall?
Thurgood Marshall was actually the first black Chief Justice in the U.S. The Baltimore Airport,
Yes.
for those who don't know,
Yeah.
BWI Airport is...
But then, is she talking about the 999 for Kenya or 999?
No, for Kenya. For Kenya, Thurgood Marshall was involved also with some work in Kenya.
Okay,
You know, and that's why I think...
Those days of Kina Coca.
Yeah,
Not Coca, before Coca.
that was before.
Who was the guy before Coca?
I think it might have been before.
Chief Justice.
It was Miller. I think it was.
No, okay, before Miller. Before Miller, there was a Muindi.
Yeah, but
Because Miller, remember, was from Guyana. Or
Yes.
something like that.
Yes, and that's why I'm saying, you know, like this, I think we need an episode on these stories. So Esther, maybe share with us some...
But hata kama aliweka hiyo, si hizo zilikuwa vitu za wakoloni ndio walikuwa nataka. Si yeye alikuja kama contractor.
So you see, I think we're gonna have more value with these stories, you know,
If
like
we pick a research,
when we do some research,
yeah,
and we
and
know
we'll come back with
exactly,
what we're talking
you know,
about,
like
yeah.
we know exactly what we're talking about. But I think it's good that Kenyans are getting some interest in history, and this is where you now know that history is very, very important. A lot of times, we've even had ministers of education in Kenya say history is useless, but we're going to talk about that later on the show. I want to remind the listeners that you tuned into the One Mic Show, and I'm your co-host and producer, Ali Badawi. We're here talking about the tragic murder of Margaret Mbitu in Boston. Now, later on the show, we'll talk about the issue of harassment of arriving passenger by KRA customs officials at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. So we want you to stay tuned for that. And please start dropping a few comments about your experiences at Jomo Kenyatta Airport. Our lines are open, and the number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. So please save that number. Now, before we continue, you know, like I'm going to come to you, Uno Mike, on this. And this is regarding the TCS New York Marathon, which is coming up this Sunday, the 5th of November, and it will be broadcast live on ESPN2 with coverage beginning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on ESPN2. So make sure you're tuned in this Sunday. But Uno Mike, real quick, we're not going to stay on this too much, but you've been reviewing, you know, like the list of runners who are going to be participating in this year's New York's marathon. What is it? What's one thing that maybe might have caught your attention on both the men and the women who are going to be participating in the New York Marathon?
So there's a lot of word that the list is not heavy. It's not packed with like the guys that you'd expect.
So on the
Packed
men's
into-
or the women's side?
On the men's side.
On the men's side.
On the
okay.
men's side.
Heavy hitters.
Heavy hitters.
Yeah.
But which is okay. But I think, you know, for me, I was looking at it as a chance for somebody else is getting an opportunity
Correct.
to come in and do something. You know, we might get a potential Kiptum somewhere in the Kiptum.
I think
A
that
Kiptum somewhere in the middle.
I think that debutant, that Kenyan debutant,
Yes.
might do it.
But what is interesting is when you look at the men, looking at the list,
Yes.
ni wanaume tu wawili.
Yeah.
From Kenya.
Yes.
Yes, Albert Korir
Yep.
and Edward Cheserek.
And
Who
Edward
is- who
Cheserek is a debutant.
He's a debutant.
Debutant.
Yes.
Haya. When
Yeah.
you look at the mamas, Mwadhani, 1, 2, 3,
Boss,
4, 5,
there are
6,
8.
7.
The
Ni
Mama's
wanane.
list is loaded.
Acho.
Including
In Kikuyu wanazamanga icho.
Yeah.
including who?
There's Bridget Kosgei,
Uh-huh.
and then there's Peres Jepchirchir, there's Edna Kiplagat, Mary Ngugi Cooper. Hiyo Cooper atatueleza alitoa wapi.
Iyo, Mere Goge.
Yeah, and then there's Helen Obiri, Viola Cheptoo, and Sharon Lokedi. So on the women's side, I will not be surprised to see a 1, 2, 3. Although
I think
although
I see
Ethiopian,
I see 5.
the Ethiopian Gide might spoil that part.
0.
Yeah,
I don't see that happening.
Gide might spoil that part.
What is
But- but-
Gide's time?
but
2 hours and 16.
2 hours 16. There's only one Kenyan on this list who has a better time than her,
And that is
that's
Bridget
Kosgei.
Kosgei.
Yeah. So all the rest, you know, like have not reached Gide's, you know, personal best. But I'm also looking at Sharon Lokedi. I'm looking at her to make a surprise. I think she's the defending champion, the defending champion of the New York Marathon. If I'm not sure, I could be mistaken, but I think there's a defending champion. And then there's Helen Obiri. Let's not forget Helen Obiri. Helen Obiri is one of those who might be. She won't even be a surprise winner this time, because remember she won in Boston. So I won't be surprised to see her winning. Now, I have an interesting prediction to make on the men's side, and I'm hoping that I'm gonna be wrong. I will not be surprised this time if I don't see a Kenyan
in the
top 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I will not be surprised.
Let me say this: when you look at the men's,
Yeah, because a lot of the top hitters,
yes,
like they pulled out of the New York Marathon. I'm not sure why.
Now, when you look at the men's,
Yes.
when you look at the ranking in terms of time,
Yes.
the closest Kenyan is number 8.
Number 8, Albert Korir.
Albert Korir,
Yeah.
with a time of 2 hours and 8 minutes and something.
Yeah.
Then the other one is Uko, number 19, Cesarek,
Yeah, who's a debutant.
who's a debutant. So there's no time. So
yeah,
that is why I'm saying.
and we
that is why I
don't
was
we don't
saying
know what his time would be.
We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
So he
So-
might surprise us.
He might surprise.
That's why
and I think that's why
I'm with him.
That's why we were saying I think this is also a chance. But I would
Yeah.
we're also curious as to the thought process of fielding these two or fielding these two, and what also happened to the guys or the supposed heavy hitters, why they pulled out. I'll just be curious
I think
of that, because it leaves us, we're like only 2 normally, because I think you normally see like a good number of a contingent of runners,
Correct.
especially
Yeah.
with men.
Yeah.
But
correct.
Yeah, I think also the issue is that there's a lot of the top runners are angling themselves for Paris
For Olympics.
2024. And here is the issue with the marathon for Olympics. They allow a maximum of 3 runners in every country. And this is always a headache for Athletics Kenya to select the 3 runners who are going to represent Kenya. Because I think according to David Rudisha, he once said that Kenya has, and that was some years back, said that Kenya has more than 800 runners who qualify for the Olympic time. Meaning that if they were almost in any other country, those 800 people would have qualified to go for the Olympics. I think now it's more than 1,000 who qualify to go for the Olympics, but only
based
3.
upon time.
Based upon time.
Yes.
Based upon time, every country is allowed a maximum of 3. So we know for sure that
The GOAT.
Eliud Kipchoge, the GOAT,
Is gonna go.
gonna be there because he's a defending champion.
Yep.
We have Kelvin Kiptum,
Who
who recently broke a world record.
So he's gotta go.
he definitely most likely has to be there.
He's got to go. He's got the world record.
So
you can't deny him.
So you have a whole host of
Which
think
means there's only one
15
spot left.
Yeah, there's like 15 elite
So
runners
who
who are
do you
fighting
pick
for one
from
spot.
these chaps?
Yeah, that's a headache.
So
I think it's a problem.
how do they arrive at 3? Is it something that is
It's
No,
that's
it's the
that's what
Olympics.
that's
That's
Olympics
Olympic
that
standard.
Olympic
Yeah, for the
standards. Yes,
marathon.
Olympics
Yeah,
say
okay.
that. Yeah,
It's a
because you can
maximum
only
of 3
field
per
so many
country.
people, right?
Yeah, it's a maximum of 3 per country because Olympics they try to give a chance to all countries in the world.
Okay, good.
And
know,
then
like-
also think about it from a medaling perspective.
Yeah.
You only have 3 medals that are
that
going to be given.
makes sense.
So
Yeah, so they
Sharon Lokedi.
Yeah, Sharon Lokedi.
Yeah,
Oh,
New
is-
York Marathon.
New York Marathon,
Reigning-
yeah. So that's also another one to watch. But yeah, so that becomes a headache for Kenya. And then I think because the Olympics, I think is gonna be the marathon is gonna be in August because I think the Olympics is between July and August. So whoever is gonna be going to the Olympics might wanna do one more marathon in 2024 before they go to the
Correct.
Olympics. So I think that's why this timing of the
wouldn't
New
they
York
have to do the
Marathon-
trials? Wouldn't they have to do the Olympic trials because they haven't picked them yet?
No, marathons I don't think has trials
They
per se.
They do it based upon time. Or?
They do it based upon
Okay.
like what because marathon is very intensive. It doesn't
Correct.
have trials like the way 100 meters
Yes.
has
Yes,
trials.
correct,
So
yes.
marathons and I stand corrected if I'm wrong. Marathons because of the grueling nature
Yes,
of the
of
race.
the race, and your body needs time to recover.
Yes, there's a
between
different
races.
way to select. So I know in Kenya you at least need to have won within the 4 years leading up to the Olympics, you at least need to have won at least 2 of the Abbott marathons, the major marathons, for even you to be considered, not for you to qualify, for you to even be considered. So it's very tough.
So then, what's Kiptum's second race that he's won?
So I don't know whether Kiptum has won any other race, but by virtue of breaking
the world record,
a world record, because that's a rare occurrence.
Yes.
That's a rare. Typically, someone who breaks a world record is someone who's probably won other marathons. But Kiptum came in so young and just surprised everyone.
He obliterated.
Yeah.
Yeah, he obliterated.
He just surprised everyone.
That
so,
record is going to fall.
yeah. So
The 2 hour joint.
Yes, yes.
Inaanguka.
The athlete,
Soon.
today's athlete versus yesterday's athlete.
Yes.
Totally
different
different. And when you go back to say, let's go back to maybe even 2005, and look at what the record was then, and you compare with.
You remember at one point in
Say
time,
now.
996 was
a good time.
The Carlo, that was
Carlos.
it.
Yes.
No, I remember when Ben Johnson, was disqualified.
988.
He ran 989. I think it
Yes.
was a 989.
Yeah. Yes.
And that was a juiced up runner,
Yes.
a runner who had taken drugs.
Yes.
We don't know if
We don't
he
know,
was
but
juiced
that's-
for that one, but he had been juicing.
Yeah, he had been juicing, and
Yes.
that's what he was accused of.
Which means
Yeah.
he was juiced.
We're not sure.
So,
we don't know.
So
We don't
Evans Marube here is telling us that Kiptum won in Paris. So
Okay.
yes, he has already won
Okay.
another race. So that's good.
then he's in, like Flint.
Yeah, because by virtue of having those 2
Yes.
runners, Kipchoge and
Unless
Kiptum.
Kipchoge pulls out.
I don't think Kipchoge will pull out because he's after history, and I think unfortunately, and this is like a Kenyan to Kenya rivalry. I don't know,
Fungua roho.
I need to see Kiptum running one more race. Because I think he will run one more race before he goes to the Olympics.
Which would be what? You think he's going to do Boston?
So I don't know. I don't know which one he's going to do.
Because Boston is around March.
Boston is around March.
Which would-
and I think that's the one most...
Which would make sense.
No, it's
Yeah.
April.
Either way, it still makes sense because you still have 3 months or more.
you still have like
3 or 4 months
you
to
have up to
recover.
August.
By the way,
You have up to August.
to Kona road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, April.
You have up to August. We should start planning now. because
Wahome.
it will not happen.
Dinner with champions.
We
Is there a dinner with champions in Boston
Oh,
anymore?
ama hiyo ni nyuma ya tent.
hiyo ni nyuma ya tent.
Na
There
kuna
could possibly
Chicago.
be one.
Okay, sorry.
But now I want to go to Evans
Chicago ni
Marube.
October, hiyo sasa tunajua vile
I
tutafanya.
want to go to Evans Marube. Evans Marube said they go to Kasarani for Olympic trials. The best 3 are picked. Evans Marube, talk to us about the marathons. I don't think the marathons have trials where like Kipchoge and all these guys are running. I don't think, but Evans, please correct
Ama
us.
kuna mtu uingie na brown envelope.
I think the marathons, they have a different way in which they select. But these other races, like 1,500 meters, 3,000
yeah.
meters.
Yeah, those ones they go,
Those ones
yes.
they go
Yeah.
for trials.
Yeah.
And then Udi Madenge said Kipchoge can't pull out. He has to solidify his Nike statue. Well, yeah, and then of course there was that Nike statue of his that was unveiled.
Udi Madenge,
in
the
in
Grease.
Netherlands,
Yeah. I think somebody, this is something for to plant a seed to discuss further, but because I think at some point in time, we were discussing about honoring
Yes.
people like Kipchoge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And by
honoring by...
you see, now that's the thing.
Honoring by who?
No,
By
I think,
Kenya. In
Okay.
Kenya.
No, as Kenyans.
In Kenya.
I
As Kenyan, just Kenya, like, okay, we have this guy. We have this dude, man. Forget even goat and forget camel. This is like the Kobe, the je ne sais quoi, the filet mignon.
Kenya, we are such a sporting powerhouse, and I think we just
Mosh,
need to be creative on how to recognize these athletes in a way that will also benefit them. I think it would be nice to have, like a grand sporting museum. In fact, just have one special for marathons.
Why don't we have one?
But and that's why.
Because the original Kipchoge.
Yeah.
I mean, where is he featured somewhere?
Yeah, because
Kina Henry Rono.
Yes, because we have a history dating back to pre-independence. So
Way back,
So I think it would be important to come up with a way of recognizing these people in a way that also benefits them. You know, like for example, when these athletes retire, be the one, you know, hire them, let them be the ones even taking people around, you know, like Mzungu, pay extra money to be taken around by, you know, like by a Paul Tergat, you know, like around the museum. You remember, like even that dinner, or that dinner with champions, there was this idea of running with champions.
Correct.
Where you go back and you're an American, you're British, or you're from whatever, and you're running with Kenyan, with people who are Olympic champions, people who've won these marathons. There are so many ideas around it that can actually benefit, you know, like these athletes who've retired, and even benefit and even be a source of inspiration to other people, and even create tourism. People will be coming to watch this, because there are people who study Kenya as a science in how we're able
to win long
churn
distance
out
races.
these athletes every year.
Yeah.
So I think that's just something that we need to talk about. You know, when Omanyala was here on the One Mic show, I mean, of course, he brought to attention, you know, a lot of privileges they get. There's a diplomatic passport that's coming up. I don't know whether that has been
was
effected.
coming up. It's coming up, yes.
Yeah, it's coming up. And then, of course, you know, there are those privileges of where you're allowed to be, like, is it a police constable, or you're allowed to have some rank in the, either in the police or in the military.
The services.
Which you keep
service.
even
It's like,
after.
is it like those honorary doctorates that
They
some
are
people
honorary,
get?
yes. They're honorary terms, yes. They're honorary.
But remember, Kipchoge told us that, not Kipchoge, sorry, Omanyala told us that he had to go to Kiganjo.
Yes.
You know, like
He
to
went
do
for
the
training.
It's not
training.
honorary.
Yeah. So it's not honorary.
So
the
the
not
guy went
honorary.
boot camp. Mzee aliingia boot camp.
Alingia
Yes.
boot camp,
Yes.
but then you keep that title for life, and you can continue with your athletics
Career.
with athletics activities, but you still get paid the salary as someone who was serving in the force, either in the police force or in the armed forces.
And when they have those armed force games, you
Yeah.
represent your discipline, whichever it is.
But you see, okay, I guess I think I think Ali is saying, I think there needs to be more creativity in recognition of these guys, because one, these guys are brand ambassadors.
Yeah.
That is one. Two, I'm sure most of you guys saw the number of pickup trucks that are limited edition that are Kipchoge,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah, so they're big recognized in so many
but
other places.
Other places, but not home.
We have a lot of companies. We have a lot of companies at home that could also do something in recognition, because if you have multinationals that are paying these athletes so much money, one idea I would give companies back home is go back. Don't wait for them to win gold medals. Go back and try to do a bit of research on who's upcoming, like Kiptum, for example. If a Safaricom or, you know, like a Sportspesa or anyone would have just given him something when he was 19, 18, you know, they benefit from that brand recognition once he becomes a global brand. Because once they become global brands, they're not coming back to not coming back.
They're
to
gonna deal with Nike, Adidas, and all those other guys.
and
Vodafone. They're not gonna deal with you guys and your local.
And this is it. And I always talk about. I think I was talking to even Misha at one point in time, and I was saying, you know, like if let's say, for example, we had, let's say, you know, if you're a Queens guy, if you're a Mean Machine or whatever, you know, if there's a
Hall of Fame.
Not even Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Just go to, let's say, your Nondis, whatever. Your Harlequins.
Mm-hmm.
You go to the Castor. If they have a merchandising store.
Yes.
And then you have the jerseys of all the greats. You even have pictures over there. You know, you unanunua jersey, let's say Misha, ama you buy, Ali was a legend, kuna jersey yake hapo. You can go buy the scarves of Harlequins or whatever. Like you merchandising. It's just
store,
merchandising. Just the store. Something simple.
They have something, but they don't have them for, like, you know, like, first of all, the whole adage of even retiring a number for somebody, because that would be one way of looking at it. Like, this guy was a great in this, so we actually retired his number, and with that, as you have said, comes along the jersey, which you can buy.
Yeah,
you
because
know,
like, how many?
Because you're gonna get it from there. But it's even like even the Queen's jerseys. It's tough for you and I to. It's tough for you and I to get them. You have to know somebody who is either within the fraternity or whatever it is to even get it. So even when they see somebody wearing a jersey, they know that person either played or are affiliated with a player. You're not
there's
just
a
getting the
whole-
jersey.
There's a whole business model around, like spaces that are excelling in sports that even Brad was talking about last week, that if we tapped into from a very early stage, there's actually so much money to be made. But this is a conversation that
For
we're
another
gonna
day,
have.
yes.
We want to be, but before we move on, there was some comments here. Slay said, also, even if they're being paid, I feel like we should still honor them. Slay, please tell us how you'd like us to honor them. And Udi says, I kumbuka Douglas Wakikara. 'cause
Kihara,
we
I
live-
think.
Wakihuri.
It's
Wakihuri.
Wakihuri, yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know
The
what.
boxer.
They lived in the same.
No,
the same
Douglas
Wasn't it-
Wakihuri is
no,
not a
the
boxer.
runner,
He's a
the
marathon runner.
the three, was it marathon or
no,
three?
no. Douglas Wakihuri was a marathon.
Wakihuri, yes. I remember Wakihuri.
And actually, I remember there
He
was
was in the 80s, right?
He was in the 80s and early
Yeah.
90s. There was a Nissan DT Dobby.
Yes.
That actually sponsored him. And now you see Douglas Wakihuri. It's not too long ago, but then Gen Zers like Slay might not even know who Douglas Wakihuri is. Slay, correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah.
You know Slay is going to come.
No. But I'm just saying, these were legends. These were legends.
Slay.
Yeah.
Ali,
I'm
not
trying to
us.
help you.
No, this one.
But it's
these
true.
were- these were
Wakihuri
legends
was,
Yeah, but
people don't
Wakihuri
know.
was a legend.
Listen, not
yes.
even that guy there. Like, if you even okay, again, I know it's a conversation for another day, but even having like documentaries about these guys, we don't. Eliud, we don't. We just see a 15-minute clip of a guy on sports on KTN or whatever.
ESPN and Nike have documentaries on him. Multiple.
Saskia.
Yeah.
Not I'm talking not even just career, even Kipchoge. Who are like those guys.
Original
Akina-
Kano, Kipchoge
the
Kano.
original
The original
like
one,
even having those
the
ones-
one for the 60s.
Yeah, for the
Kipchoge
60s.
Kano.
Yeah.
Like Akinangugi, the
Yeah.
800-meter guy. Like stories about those guys. Those are guys who are supposed to be having people, maybe not even statues, but stories. These are guys that you know. If I was to ask many Americans, they will probably know someone like Jim Thorpe, Johnny Unitas.
Yeah.
People guys who played football in the early 1900s.
Yeah, and then you see Americans even know, let's even not even go back
Because of
that far.
Babe Ruth.
Even 90s,
Yes.
a lot of Kenyans, a lot of younger Kenyans would not know, and you cannot blame them.
No.
Because these people, they don't keep showing us reels of them. There's not content about them, and that's why we need to be creative about how we're gonna do this. Now we want to move on. Let me see. Slay says, I've mentioned doing documentaries, them or a stadium named after them, and then Stephen Batty here says,
This is in response to Slay saying she's not Gen Z.
Yeah, Slay. I was just messing with you. And then Udi Madenge says Douglas Wakihuri won a Japan marathon. Douglas Wakihuri actually famously never won an Olympic marathon. The very interesting thing is that let me do a quick trivia here. Let me see who actually pays attention. Who was when was the first time Kenya won a marathon gold in the Olympics, and who was it that won?
1968.
Okay, and who is it that won?
Kipchoge Kano.
Okay, you give us your answer.
I don't know.
Anyone in the comments, and I know people are busy Googling right now, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you because I know most people don't know. The first time Kenya won a marathon was in Beijing, 2008. Believe it or not. 2008 was Kenya's first marathon Olympic gold medal. The late Samuel Wanjiru is the one who delivered, yes.
Or the one who fell.
Yes,
That's
the one who fell.
right?
Yeah.
Off a balcony.
Yeah, and it's so surprising that he was the first one. He was the first Kenyan to win an Olympic gold in the marathon. Kenya had never won an Olympic
In the
gold
marathon, yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Marathon,
The key to it
yes.
is marathon.
Yes, marathon.
Yes, because
But you
Kina,
think-
Henry Rono, all those guys were the other distances, the
Yeah.
shorter distances, not marathon.
Yeah. So definitely it wasn't Kipchoge. But now you know. Now if you go to an event and that trivia is thrown out, you can act like the one who knew, but secretly you can give me credit. You can cash up me, or you can M-Pesa me and say, I use this information that I got from you. But anyway, let's move on. No, Dimadenge, nope. Douglas Wakihuri never won an Olympic gold medal. He may have won an Olympic medal. It was not gold. And the good thing about nowadays is that, in case I'm wrong, I know there's someone who's quickly fact-checking right now, and I will be called out. So there we go. And then Udi Madenge says he was a 5,000 meter champion like 5 times. I don't know about that, but again, like this is something that we're gonna
Even
discuss.
if he was, that's not a marathon.
Now we want to move on. To our next topic of the day, and we all know that the King of England, King Charles III, just concluded an official royal tour to Kenya with his wife Queen Camilla. Now, he took part in several activities, including laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown at Nairobi's Uhuru Gardens. He then went on to visit the Nairobi National Park and got to travel to Mombasa. King Charles also attended an event celebrating the life of the late Nobel laureate Wangari Maathai and visited Karura Forest, which Maathai helped save from developers through her years as an activist. Now, despite the king's acknowledgement of painful aspects of Britain's colonial past, several individuals and social justice activists registered anger over his royal visit. Now, a group that had planned to demonstrate at the foot of Mau Mau freedom fighters' Dedan Kimathi monument in the central business district had their protest banners confiscated and got dispersed by the police. Among the demands from protesters included that the king apologize for the British Empire's past crimes during the colonial era. There were also demands for repatriations and the closure of the permanent British military base, also known as Batuk, located in Nanyuki. Now, I want to take this opportunity again to welcome the panel to this conversation. And Uno Mike, maybe I want to get started with you, or maybe I'm gonna actually let's start with Uno Mike. There are those who say that the King's trip was a great success, with Kenya being the first Commonwealth country that he chose to visit as the sitting monarch. They insist that as a country, we should look towards the future in building a good relationship with our former colonial master. On the contrary, there are also those who feel that before hosting royal tours and fraternizing with former colonial masters, we must first settle historical injustices brought about by over 60 years of colonial rule that still continue to negatively impact our society to date. Now, no Mike, to you, maybe talk to us about how you perceive this royal tour from where you're seated. Uno Mike.
Now, what I'm going to do to start with, let me just play, pertaining to what your question is.
Yes.
Let me just play a clip.
Okay.
Just a clip. And if I can get this thing
And who's
right.
on that clip?
This is King Charles
King Charles III.
the Third.
Okay. No longer Prince. King.
I knew him as a prince. Sasa mkiniletea hiyo king.
Wacha tusikie anachosema.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse. In coming back to Kenya, it matters greatly to me that I should deepen my own understanding of these wrongs and that I meet some of those whose lives and communities were so grievously affected. None of this can change the past, but by addressing our history with honesty and openness, we can perhaps demonstrate the strength of our friendship today. And in so doing, we can, I hope, continue to build an ever closer bond for the years ahead.
What?
He almost said Paul.
Almost doesn't count.
I'm just saying, just listening, he almost said Paul over there, but it sounded like somebody pinched him. Then he woke up.
Of course, there's no way he's going to do that. And I was listening to this, the courtesy of a clip from.
Of course, he can't say that because that opens them out to legal.
A lot.
Yes,
And
they are
also
not,
don't forget, because
do
there
that.
are people who are waiting in the wings.
Correct.
Palestine being one of them. Because actually, and somebody posted this in another group, 100 years ago.
They are the architects.
The Balfour Declaration.
They are the architects
of
the hour
saying,
too. The hour. They are the architects.
Hour two.
Yeah.
So I think what needs to happen is history is very important. And as bitter and as bad and as harsh and as madhogadhanio as it was, it happened.
Correct.
You cannot hide that fact. You cannot whitewash it. No matter how you try to whatever, it's very simple. They came in, guys were bamboozled, guys were made to wear KRA, kitambulisho. Nikama, like they were KRA. They were put in they were corralled into cages.
Passbooks.
JKIA was built by KRA, by detainees. We know what happened. Wamomo, all those places that even the origin of some of those places, many people do not know. Acknowledging and apologizing would be the first step. Like if there were some clips that were also circulating in terms of like what happened to the bodies of certain people, certain freedom fighters,
Like the Dan
Kimathi.
Nobody knows where he was buried.
There's a guy from, I think, either Kisii or Masai. They were demanding to know where the bodies were because they want to bury. Even if they bring the head, they were saying they want to bury rightfully and accordingly and according to their customs or whatever, so that the person can rest. Now, with those things not being addressed, there's still going to be tension. However, the farther this thing moves further along, at some point our kids will, if we don't teach our kids will not really know and they will not really understand. As much as even us, ourselves. Because you remember when we used to go to the movies, what were we being shown? Those Kenya reels.
Kenya reels, yeah.
The Kenya reels.
Yeah.
Oh, these guys are coming, these guys were bad. All we knew was that these guys were bad. They used to kill out the Muzungu, whatever. And, eventually they gave us freedom. But the context of the stories was never really, really given.
Yeah, and then you
Right?
see there was movies like Kitchen Toto, which depicted the Mau Mau, like very negatively.
Kabisa.
And we are seeing parallels of what's happening in Gaza, for example, today, and when we read back the history of what previously happened. So I got an interesting comment from someone that I was a desk mate with in high school, very smart guy. He was asking me, okay, I see you're very passionate about this Israeli-Palestinian issue, but don't you think, also the Palestinians are also culpable, for what has happened to them? Why can't they just, behave well and get into an agreement? So I asked him a simple question, because I believe he also has some Mau Mau ancestry. So I asked him a simple question. If you go back to the 50s, would you tell the same thing to the Mau Mau, who are labeled at the time? They were labeled as terrorists. They were labeled as criminals. All these labels that you're seeing, the West use on groups that are not complying with what they want. I also interestingly tell people that, do you know who was on the U.S. terror list until 2008? Should I make it a trivia or should I just say it? There was someone, very, very revered, who was still
Nelson Mandela.
There you go. Nelson Mandela was on a U.S. terror list until 2008 when it became an issue and they had to remove it. The ANC, African National Congress, it was a terrorist organization. So I tell people to be very, very careful, when you're bundled in and you're told that you have to label all these people.
But even
as
Nani
terrorists.
was labeled as a terrorist. Yasser Arafat.
Absolutely, yeah.
And PLO.
And PLO.
In fact, PLO was the precursor for Hamas for the longest time. Because remember, until Yasser Arafat came in and became the president?
Yeah. Not to get out of topic, but Hamas was created
in 89,
with
87,
with some
80s.
assistance, with some funding from Israel. Funny
Yes,
enough,
yes.
to counter
undermine-
PLO,
to undermine the PLO.
Arafat and PLO. So
And that is not us saying it. This is history.
the
that is
good
out
thing
there.
about these things is that
It's there to there.
Like if maybe we've hurt your feelings by saying this, you can always go check to verify if what we're saying is correct, and feel free to come back and tell us, and you guys were wrong. But now back to our story in Kenya.
So when such things, and that is why I think, again, it is important to just know and read history. How, when Orange was declared president in 2016, how we dove
You mean Donald Trump?
Okay. into reading about slavery, understanding the emancipation, understanding Jim Crow, understanding the Civil War, what it was about,
A forced history lesson.
exactly. You're like, oh my God, understanding how the college career, they don't go with the popular vote, is electoral college, how they came about. How this, why you find like the South has got a small population but have got so many electoral college votes. Understanding that, it is important to understand like the very many people who don't know that JKIA itself was built by detainees of the Mau Mau. The guys who are detained, whether it's Mau Mau or whatever, during the emergency, those guys are the ones who are the ones who built JKIA. Until I read the book, The British Gulags in Kenya, I never really had a picture of what went on.
Yes. And it was very brutal.
It was very brutal. You just hear stories. Unasikia story, you watch Kenya newsreel. But even you've heard that even sometimes the people who went through the torture and everything, they never talk. If you ask,
it's very hard.
If you ask anyone who participated in,
they never want to
whether
remember.
whether it's Nandi, whoever it is, whoever participated in the liberation, they never really talk and they never address. They never recount the stories.
Yes.
But when you read the accounts, and this is from somebody who is not Kenyan, detailing what transpired, chronology, you understand that, okay, I understand why people would not want to talk about it, but I also get why people, the British and the government, the British government would not want people
would not want people to know. Yes.
There was a court case that was filed by, I think it was
Gitu,
that guy.
Kahengeri.
Yes.
Yeah.
Matter was settled out of court.
Yes, it was settled out of court. It was settled out of court.
Okay.
Because
it was settled out of court.
Because if it went full trial,
boss,
the court would have subpoenaed, like classified information.
Absolutely.
To be unsealed.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it is important. It is painful. It is but it is important to know where you're coming from, to know where you're headed.
There's a very nonsensical thing that sometimes like happens in Kenya about like history. Mtu atakuuliza itanisaidia na nini? And now when you have situations like this where the king is visiting Kenya, that's when you start learning about the problems of deficiencies of history, or even just what's going on in the world, around the world right now. Mm-hmm. It shows that there's a very high level of historical illiteracy. Notice one thing: Americans, they will force you to take history, from elementary school. There's a curriculum for middle schoolers, there's a curriculum for people in high school, and then there's a curriculum for people who go to college, and that's American history, which I think we also need to craft.
But also that American history, I'm sorry to say,
yes, it's watered down.
Because they're the ones.
Yes,
if people remember the United Daughters of the Confederacy,
yes,
the ones who whitewashed
it's definitely history. Watered down.
Absolutely.
But we now live in an age where, like, Gen Z kids are being told in Florida, you cannot study, like African American, these classes on African American history. And when you tell Gen Zs not to do something, guess what they do?
They go there.
That's exactly where they go, and that's where they go and find out that Mansa Abubakar, who was Mansa Musa's brother, was actually the first person who came here. He came here way before Columbus, hundreds of years before Columbus, came on a voyage to the U.S. And you start understanding, like some of the falsities or some of the alternative histories that were being taught. Because nowadays, even if you don't have people go to these classes, they can go on the internet.
Bro, my niece, 9, Zoe, Baba Hanya's daughter.
Yes.
So Gofu, he calls me like, hey man, and Zoe's asking me some questions. I'm like what? The other day she was inquiring about religion and why religion is being forced religion. So no matter how you want to dissect it,
Yeah.
you know. And then the other day she was asking me, you know, about segregation, and she said that was very unfair. So I told her, Zoe, this is what I want you to do. I want you, for your homework, go read about Jim Crow laws. These are 9-year-old. I think just go read, because chances are they probably will not be taught about that. They will, or even if it is, it's gonna be superficially taught. But at 9, she's very curious to understand why such things are happening.
So as
and she's 9.
As a parent, if you're illiterate in history, you're also illiterate, and I know this is a word that people don't like hearing, you're also fairly illiterate on the religion that you practice. Guess what? Your kids are going to ask you questions that you will not be able to answer. Then you will start accusing your kids of becoming apostates, or of becoming, you know, like, or just not wanting, you know, kids are innocent. So when they ask simple questions, you have to be prepared and know, you know, like how...
And especially if your kids are,
Yeah.
hey, I'm sorry to say, if you're black, African, Kenyan, whatever, expect those.
Yeah, so you see, like, there's a 9-year-old Muslim kid who was with the parent was asking us if the Israelis, you know, like, are bombing the Palestinians, why can't the Muslims fight back? That's a 9-year-old asking, you know. But now you have to be very careful and very
In how you answer
measured
that. Yes.
in how you answer that question, because a lot of these interactions that you have with young kids, they tend to have a big impact. Part of the reason why I think we have a generation that doesn't care much about history is because a lot of people also grew around environments where there was no consciousness, especially during our era. Everybody was trying to be careful. Nobody was trying to say anything and get arrested. So that's why
Kenya.
Yeah, so that's why you end up having people
Seditious
who are in our
publication.
age group or younger, but I'm sorry to say, but they are just fairly illiterate in very recent Kenyan history that's available. I can see there so many comments that have been coming in.
They have
And
been coming in hot and
yes,
heavy.
Yes, and I'm going to start with Esther's comment. Esther Mulusa says, Charles has never apologized for colonialism. Africans need to understand European semantics. An apology is important because the next big step is taking fiscal responsibility. That meeting was another example of Africans groveling to Western leaders. I was disappointed by Ruto, the unintelligent man with his dowdy wife coming to wine and dine uncalled for in these hard times. Yes, so I think, you know, like, there were people who are asking why an apology is important, and this is where an understanding is required. And I'm glad that Esther is telling us an apology comes with fiscal responsibility. They will be opened up for litigation, and that's the reason why they don't want to apologize. Because if the British start apologizing, I guarantee you that country will become bankrupt because of what they did to the entire world during the reign of the empire, starting with their own neighbors. Scotland, Wales, Ireland, that's where they learned the skills of colonization, and they took it to every other
Now
part of the
imagine
world.
India.
Now India, there's someone here who,
India and Pakistan.
who made a comment about that. Stephen Bhatt says, don't forget the project that splits India to form Pakistan. That caused a lot of problems. There's a movie out there about it. I forgot the name. Yes, so Kashmir and the forced relocation of people, the Muslims who are, you know, like, on the Indian side, were forced to shift and go to the
Pakistan.
other side.
Yeah.
So the one of the bigger Muslim scholars here in the US, young Muslim scholars, Yasir Qadhi, you know about him.
Yes.
I've shared, you know, a lot of videos on him with you. Very intelligent guy. So his history, his family, he was born in the US, he was born in Texas, but his family came from Pakistan, but originally the family were from India. You know, so they were forced to go to this other side. So that was also another very, very ugly moment in history that the Brits will pay for dearly,
But
if they open up themselves to litigation.
And in addition to that, you know,
Yeah.
some Brits were saying that, you know, Kenya should be content and very happy that the British came. They taught us English. They taught us, and they allowed us, and they taught
They
us.
civilized us.
They civilized us.
Yeah, so that's a narrative they like
yes.
spreading.
There in Brito, yes.
Yeah, that's a narrative they like spreading. You know, like
So akina Slay, Udi, akina Brian Binyamu, Asheke, all those ones, they should be thankful that Brito came and they civilized our parents and our ancestors, who in turn civilized us.
yeah, that's what we call nonsense. And the good thing, and I think they're also saying it right now, people are starting to understand what exactly was happening. Kenya Doyo says atume reparations kwanza. And then
Wow.
Slay says British went round just causing chaos. They need to apologize and compensate. No excuses. And the chaos are on the African continent, in the Asian continent, that's India, Pakistan, and also in the Arab world. They were involved everywhere.
For some of you who may not know, the Balfour Declaration,
Before the
1917,
before the Balfour
2023.
before the Balfour Declaration, there was something called the Sykes-Picot Agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, where the British and the French drew a map and decided how they were gonna. This was even before being victors in the war. They had already decided how the Middle East was gonna be divided,
yeah.
and this is what caused some of the problems that we see today. And this is also what brought an end to
The Ottoman.
to the 1300-year-old. So it wasn't just the Ottoman
Yeah,
Empire.
well, yeah, the
The Ottoman
yes,
Empire
yes.
was a 500-year-old empire, but the Ottoman Empire was a continuation of the Islamic Khilafah, or what's called the Caliphate, from the Prophet Muhammad over 1450 years ago, all the way to 1924. So it was over 1300 years of continuous rule that was brought to a halting end, because what the British do, they double-crossed people. Because remember, the Turks are the ones who are, the interesting thing that a lot of people don't know is that the Muslim world was ruled by Arabs for a very short time. From the Arabs, at some point, it went to the Persians. And Persians are not Arabs. Never call Iranians Arabs. So at some point, it went to the Persians. And then out of those 1300 years, 500 years was the Ottoman Empire, which is Turks. They're the ones who are ruling the Muslim world. So what the British did, they went and promised, at that time Saudi Arabia did not exist, they went and promised a person who was called the Sharif of Mecca, if you fight on our side, because in World War I, the Turks were on the side of the Germans. So the British went and convinced the Arabs, the Sharif of Mecca, if you make Arabs fight on our side against the Germans, and that's against the Ottomans, we will give you the Khilafah back. So there was history here whereby they were saying, the way we're gonna divide this up, we're gonna give back the caliphate to you. But at the same time, this guy called the Lawrence of Arabia, I don't know whether you guys have watched a movie called the Lawrence of Arabia.
Yes.
He was involved, and then there was also some double crossing, because also Saud, now the original guy called Saud, because Saudi Arabia is named after a person. It was the dad of the grandfather of Mohammed bin Salman. He was called Saud. So there was some double dealings and double crossings. So at the end of it, there was no caliphate, and the Sauds are the ones who prevailed, and they took that small part called Saudi Arabia, and other parts of the Arab world were divided. But this is just part of the mess that the Brits created in all different parts of the world.
Comments hapo zimejaja.
Yes,
Zimechacha
comments zimejaa. Esther anasema even the skull of Quaitalel was never returned. We should also appreciate the Nandi resistance and even Mekatilili, and not limit it to only Mau Mau. That's very true. That's another part of Kenyan history that I think needs to be corrected, where there's one group that, justifiably so fought for independence, but it's the one it's the one that depicted as it's like they were the only people.
It's not the only
who are fighting for
rightfully so, and
independence.
that is why it is important. History tufunzwe ndio tujue.
Yeah. Now, Afro Jamaican says he wants to call in. The number to call 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Again, 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Washeke, the West always labels freedom fighters as terrorists. Slay says, no, that's the number she's giving. Udi says, for some of you who might know, Kenyans couldn't get visas to South Africa in the 90s. And I think I want to pause.
It wasn't so much that they couldn't get visas. It was that the passport was not valid for travel to South Africa because that was something that, as part of apartheid, then what ended up happening is that Africa as a whole took it upon themselves to say we are actually going to stay away.
Boycott.
So we are going to boycott traveling to South Africa. So the validity of the passport, it was actually stamped and said not valid.
Except the Republic of South Africa.
Yes, not
my first passport.
Yes, not valid for travel.
Yeah, not valid for travel to South Africa. So I think it wasn't only African countries; it was quite a number of countries.
I don't know if it was Commonwealth. But
it might have been Commonwealth.
I think it was Commonwealth.
It might have been Commonwealth.
But I know for sure that the passport actually said that. So it had nothing to do with visas. And people went to South Africa, but they would sneak in.
So there was a boycott. There was a boycott on South Africa globally, which put pressure on the apartheid government to do some reforms, and that's where we got to some political freedoms, and that's when we got Nelson Mandela released, and then later on he became president. And that's why I keep telling people, because sometimes even as black people we get caught up in saying, oh, we cannot be involved with what's happening in the Arab world because of this, that. But we have to remember, in a lot of black struggles, there was a lot of allies who are also not black people that helped us cross the line from here to there. Especially in South Africa. There was a lot of pressure from the US. There was a lot of pressure from so many other places. So we are going to go ahead, and I think we have a caller.
Did that call come?
Yeah, it came through. Thank you for calling the One Mike Show 2059.
Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
After Jamaica, Toronto, Canada.
Okay, please reduce the volume on the background.
Yeah, turn it off.
We can hear it. All right. Okay, Afro-Jamaican, can you hear us?
Is this any better?
This is much better.
I can hear you.
This is much better. Talk to us, Afro-Jamaican.
Yeah, really quick. I've been like dying to get on from earlier. First thing, we talked about land titles and so on in Kenya. My wife watched this thing called the fake real or the real fake or something. She's terrified after watching that with Boniface as the People's Watchman. So that's one thing. And the other thing I tell people, if Jamaicans didn't get bad, burn a couple plantation and kill a couple people, I probably would have been born a slave.
Afro-Jamaican, we're having trouble hearing you. I don't know whether it's a headset.
Cell phone.
No, there's no headset.
There you
okay,
go.
Now we can hear you.
Now you sound like somebody who didn't steal a phone. I mean, sorry.
All right, Afro-Jamaican, talk to us.
So what I'm saying is I was watching the title deal special that you recommended, and my wife is now terrified about Kenya and land and all that stuff. So that's one thing. Mm-hmm. The other thing, if Jamaicans didn't get bad and burned a couple plantations and kill a couple people, I would probably be a slave today.
Yes,
And,
you're saying you would have been born into slavery.
Yes, and you're probably right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So all the people that I know we Jamaicans call national heroes were once called terrorists.
Yes.
Just like Mr. Kenyatta.
Is including
including
Marcus Garvey
as well. Absolutely. So I mean, I'm not really picking one side or the other with that particular conflict. I'm on one side and that's African side. So, but I'm just saying I understand the situation.
Well, what do you think needs to be done for people like you, for example, Afro-Jamaican? You're very well read. You're constantly, researching, finding out new stuff about black people in different parts of the world. What exactly do you think needs to be done to shock people into understanding that they need to learn their history? Because I think you've also noticed that there's a lot of historical illiteracy out there, even from very educated people. Afro-Jamaican.
it's not illiteracy, that is done by design. The victor writes the history. It's his history, not your history. So if I invaded someone's land, kill the indigenous people, who's going to write the history?
The winner, the one who killed.
It's the people. Exactly. And that has been going on forever. So that's not going to change. So in like the American school system, they're taught a certain thing. There's this American pride that goes without reason where they think everybody else is beneath them until they start traveling the world and go, oh my God, I've been lied to. The same thing with Canada as well. So it's not that they're illiterate. This is done exactly by design. This is our societies in North America especially operate exactly how they were designed.
Wow, North America operates exactly how they were designed. I think that's something that I also had Snoop Dogg once say. Like he's like the way racism works, like it's exactly the way it was designed, and it's working, like very accurately and very perfectly, like even when you try to change this and that. But yeah, so Afro-Jamaican, like when again are you planning to go to Kenya?
I hopefully should be there sometime around March.
Okay.
But I'll be honest, man. Watching that program last night with my wife was very troubling to say the least, that you could be in your house for 20, 30 years and some guys just knock down your gate, come in and take you out and bulldoze the house. Like, it's a bit scary. I'll be very honest.
No, it is scary. It is scary.
Yes, and you know that there's also if you watch, as you are watching that, you saw that there was also a theme. The people who are being victimized are they would either be Indian, or they
Asian
would be
origin,
Asian origin or European origin, where somebody has passed on the original owner, and now it's the next generation who have it, or the person who originally owned it, maybe it's the wife or heir who is now holding on to the title deed, and that's where these guys come in and they kind of like slip in before you know what's going on, and they play games. So these things are very strategically done.
Everybody,
go ahead.
Watch the last episode. It happened to Kenyans too. Regular black Kenyans it happened to. An entire group, I think it was 20-something people. A soccer owned the land.
Careful, guys.
It's okay.
Oh, because Ali hasn't watched it.
It's okay. We will still watch.
But go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah. It's go ahead.
So it happens to Kenyans too. It happens to ethnic Kenyans too. So it's anybody could happen to. And my thing is this: I am paying rates for the land for 20, 30 years, and somebody can come and get another document.
Yes.
Like, that sounds like an inside job. There needs to be a purge, because I'm telling you, watching it, I love your country. I love the country to death, but I will not buy another piece of land there. I won't do it.
No, it's your country now. It's your country.
You're stuck with us.
Yeah, you're stuck with us
the same way they were stuck with you, and that we're stuck with the country. And what you're saying is very, very true, very scary, to the point where if you even have an issue, and I can give you a good example of something that is practical and happens quite a bit, where you purchase a piece of property and you get a loan from a bank, and you give the title to the bank, and there's a lien on that particular property. You finish paying off the land, but then for whatever reason, you may not go up and pick your title. The bank then gets sold. Once the bank is sold to a new owner, the new owner either gets rid of the titles or whatever, but loses your title. So sometime later, you come back and you try to ask for your title, and you can't get the title because guess what? They lost it. And in them losing the title, that begins your nightmare of trying to get a title, because then now you have to start chasing the bank and showing that you even are the person who owns the land and took the loan, and so on and so forth. Because in order for you to get your title back from a lien holder, you have to pay a tax or a duty. and the duty is based upon the amount that you actually took the loan for. So there's some things that can be straightened out, but there's also other things that are nightmarish when you think about them. And for us living on this end of the world, it's normally it's clear and cut. It's a very clear and cut line. These are the policies. This is what you need to do, and boom, you do it, and you're in. But not so much.
So these are some of those things that need to be cleaned up.
Correct.
And it's definitely not going to happen overnight.
Nope.
So with the help of people, and I like the confidence that Afro-Jamaican, you still have, like in our country, despite, like some of these bone-chilling issues that happen, and we really, insist that you don't get to a point and say, you know what, I think I'm happy to be Canadian. I'm going to stay here.
No, he's not happy to be Canadian. That I can tell him for sure. So he's stuck with us the same way we're stuck.
Africa will be home.
Okay.
I would love for it to be Kenya, but Africa will be home. But I just heard an announcement that if you have land in Kenya left for 15 years or so, the government will reclaim it and give it to poor people.
No, that's no.
So
no.
No, it was announced. Listen, I saw the clip. Unless it's an AI manufactured clip.
Yes, those are manufactured.
But with this government, to be honest, I'm not gonna be shocked. If I see anything, I'm just gonna be honest. I won't be shocked to see anything crazy happening. But Afro-Jamaican, thank you so much. It
was a pleasure, man.
Yes, but remember, after today we have only 2 Fridays.
2 shows?
No, only 3 shows left. So start planning. We don't want you to start getting withdrawal symptoms. Start planning what you're gonna be doing. After we close.
I will, man.
I think he's gonna be online checking his land with a camera. He's gonna send a guy and put a CCTV.
He's gonna have a live camera.
He's gonna have a CCTV over there.
If you know anybody who builds a fence, let me know. I need a fence.
What type of fence do you want?
Okay, we got you.
We got you.
You may attend.
What type of fence? We got you.
You may attend. Thank you so much, Afro.
Any kind, man. Have a good night, gentlemen.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
Wow. Yeah. So very, very interesting conversation from Afro-Jamaican. Still a lot of comments coming in.
We have another caller.
There's another caller.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, wow. This is called Central.
Let me quickly read a few comments and then we're going to go to the caller. Washeke says, all this gaslighting of Palestinians has made me reflect on one Malcolm X's quote. If you are not careful, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And that's exactly what's happening to Kenya right now with this just concluded visit of King Charles III. And then here we have Slay saying, today social media and internet has helped us educate ourselves on history and the current affairs. And thank you so much to social media. I mean, there's a lot of trash that sometimes is on social media.
Yeah, you have to filter.
But there's a lot of gems also that come out.
The gems are more than the trash.
Yes. And then Stephen Batty says, but history is always written by the winners of the war. So you have to get the other side of the losers to be able to verify their accounts. However, history is always bound to explain the current nature of a lot of things and how we came to be. Now, one thing that Al Jazeera has tried to do, they've tried to, pick up the documents from the loser side and present it.
They've done an amazing job.
What? And these documentaries they were doing 10, 11 years ago.
Yes.
Even before. And I think when they were doing it, they were like, one day people are going to get conscious about this and this will be out here already. And then Esther Mulusa says, Africans don't like transferring historical trauma by retelling colonial horrors. They don't want to retell what they saw. The funny thing is that Africans can narrate these stories to foreigners. Many of these foreigners have written books and PhD theses on our history. That's what I don't understand. That's actually very, very true. I'd never thought about it that way at all. So let's go to the caller, and then we're going to pick up on these other comments.
Let me say real quick on...
there's something on YouTube?
Yeah, YouTube. Basically, let me start. Near Generational Welcome. Afro-Jamaican was in here too. Near Generation says that her deceased mother, who's from Georgia, had third-degree burns as a child. which it basically was caused by a mishap in the kitchen, and a white doctor would not treat her, a child. So they make it seem Jim Crow was a millennia ago, and clearly it was not. And especially in the South.
No, it was all the way to 19 in the 60s. Yeah.
Boss,
Yes.
even
up to
now. In the
Even
South,
now.
even now, you look, I mean, we've seen it.
Yes,
We've seen it happen.
Yeah, we've seen it.
Same near generation still saying that if you're ignorant of history, your future can repeat it. And, and just to finish off, she says, one man's freedom fighter is another's terrorist. What do you think they thought of Nat Turner back in the day?
Wow.
Same thing that Afro-Jamaican just said.
Yep.
You know, the people who demonized Dedan Kimathi, the people who demonized the freedom fighters, people who demonized Malcolm X, people who demonized MLK. Like, those guys ended up being like, yeah, these guys, there was something.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
You know, demonized. But when you look back, man, and that is why, again, it is so important. Like, if you can filter out the noise, and just get the history. And I am so glad, because in as much as some people try to whitewash history, there are those keepers of the real stuff, and you're going to get that.
Yes, and it's coming back to life.
It's coming back to life.
Yes.
Because like right now, the way things stand, uko Palestine,
uko Gaza,
Philistine.
I think around the heat,
Palestine.
I think around the heat, they're gonna have to come up with a solution. There's no sugarcoating left or right.
Yeah.
There's gonna have to be a solution, and it's gonna be a permanent one, whatever it is.
Whatever it is.
So, do you guys think we're too forgiving as a people?
We have been conditioned.
We've been trained to be forgiving.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we've been trained to be forgiving. Unfortunately, so we have to be untrained.
Do you know how we are trained? Jesus died on the cross for you. He forgave. So you should forgive 70 times 7 times 7.
And then you do it all over again.
You forgive 7.
Rinse, repeat.
You forgive 70 times 7
take
times.
The call. Take the call.
Because you
you
think
see,
about it. I don't know about, like you or Mosh. That's when we're talking to our parents and our career, our uncles and whatever. Even if there's Madhogodhanyo, what do they say? We shall just pray that tutachia Mungu.
No, like in Muslim cultures, we are taught ayn fil ayn, wal jar fil jar. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth.
Oh yeah, the eye for yeah.
No, we also had that in the Bible.
Yes.
But you know what we were told? When Jesus came, and when he died on the cross, and when he said it is finished, and that key robe, key curtain, was ruled in two.
Yeah.
And then that means that it was out with the old, in with the new. And that is why you'll find that, and I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but many people, when it comes to, they talk about present day Bible, either the New Testament. They only refer to the Old Testament when they want to really get some money. That's right, I said it.
Did you watch that PBD podcast? But that's a story for another day. That PBD podcast that I sent you, where there was a debate about, there were some Christians and some Muslims.
Bro, that one, that one, you have to watch it and then you pause to process.
Yes.
Because it was about 2 hours.
It was close to 3 hours, I think.
Yes,
it was more than 2 hours, yeah.
It's one of those, it's religion, but it's interesting because you're learning. Because for someone like me, I'm just learning because the Christians on one side, these are guys who escaped. Actually, one guy was a convertee from Islam.
One guy was a Moroccan, Muslim,
and he became a Christian.
Yeah.
Right? And then on this other side is a white guy who converted to Islam.
Yeah.
10 years.
A white American who became
a Muslim.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, this is quite fascinating. We should share that. I think the caller meant, but it's our.
The caller has dropped?
Yes.
Okay.
It's our too.
Wow.
Please, Rudisha.
Caller, please
Yeah,
call.
We're trying to set up the career, the alley hoop, but
yeah, caller number to call is 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak. Now let me see. Stephen JJ here says there is that land Kashmir that they're fighting over. British hands all over. And then Slay says there was nothing wrong with our way of life before colonization. I love what Slay is saying, because there is this tendency to want to look at our past life as there was something wrong with it, or there was something like that that wasn't right about it. When we had the Israeli conference a couple of years ago, out here in, I think it was in Lanham. There's someone who asked a question, and he asked, why is it that in such events, we are only talking about, yes, we want to learn about the Swahili culture wholesome, but why are we only talking about the positives? Why are we not talking about the negatives that came with the culture? And the answer that he got was very good. There was a professor who told him there's actually no culture in this world that's negative. There's nothing. So don't sit and think that because you've been told over and over again that your people were backward, your people were this. Don't ever think about your culture as it was backward.
And by that guy probably was thinking he has a point.
Yes.
A question is like, this one is going to maliza, guys.
Yeah, I know. He thought he had a very solid point. But I think,
Kenga,
and that's what we need to, nurture even to our kids.
Absolutely.
And make them understand that your language, your history, be proud of it. Don't ever let anyone out there go tell you that you guys were uncivilized.
Your hair, you don't have to straight the way it is, nappy, nature, I love it.
Okay, and then let me see. Esther says the late Professor Mazrui taught us that the railways took away our resources and food. They took and left nothing behind. And notice how railways were designed across the whole continent. Ujue, these Europeans walikuwa ni wajanja sana. The railways always used to come from the hinterland where there's produce or where there are minerals, and it would go all the way to the coast.
Correct. Yeah, to be shipped out.
Why do you think it was going to the coast?
To be shipped out.
It was going to be shipped out.
Yeah, it was to be shipped out.
So
spices, whatever, you name it.
Yeah, so even our railway network is still designed in a colonial way. How come we don't have a railway line like from Nairobi to Mandera? Yet there are people who move from Nairobi to Mandera. Why don't we design a railway system that's gonna now fit our needs of today and not fit the needs of people who came to pull resources from us? Do we have the caller?
No, we have another caller here.
Okay.
Oh, are you sure it's not the same caller?
No, it's not the same caller.
Who used the same phone, another phone that was not taken at the airport?
Thank you for calling 1974.
Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
1974.
One mic.
Yes.
Sambaza.
Sambaza
Yes.
podcast.
Sema.
Tell us where you're calling from, Sambaza.
I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Okay, talk to us, Sambaza.
Well, a couple of things, and I wanted to give you. I was in Kenya.
You're breaking up.
Sambaza.
You're breaking up.
You new phone.
Sambaza, that network. You're breaking up.
Your network is not working. Is it your mic? It's clipping.
So anyway, okay. I hope. Okay.
Usituangushe bwana.
Is it better?
Okay, it's better now. Talk to us.
Okay. So what I was saying was I was in Kenya just the other day, and come to find out that that railway that you're talking about, there's an original one. This is like the third one. They moved it somehow. But anyway, besides that story, talking about this land issue, well, looking at that movie, the three of them, out of the whole thing, I like to tell Afro-Jamaican to kind of look at it and look at another theme, that even if there was some injustices happening on that front, there's always a silver lining, and I put it in the comments, because someone out there would plant a seed to show people that there's something going wrong and some injustices, which will create some questions to be asked. And I'm thinking that is the silver lining to everything. Yes, it's bad, but there are people who are good out there in this world.
Agreed.
Unanisikia?
Yeah, tunakusikia. We're
hear
listening. No, that's what I was saying when I was talking about, in as much as pertaining to even history, in as much as you try to whitewash, there are those people who keep records.
They're custodians.
They're custodians.
Yes.
And there are those people whose, let's say, I'm gonna say, whatever it is, supreme being, something, the nature in them, the utu in them, will come out.
Yeah.
And in as much as, and I'm glad he's saying it, because the silver lining is, now we know that there's this problem. In addition to that, names have been mentioned. That's what I like about the expose that has been done, because prior to that it was always, you know, a certain guy,
Cartels. Yeah.
so whatever. But now a guy is, names are being
There's a
dropped.
name, yeah. There's a name and a face.
Yes, and a name and a face to it, which now, you know, we just hope that maybe some action will be taken. Go ahead, Sambaza.
Well, that was it. That was what I was saying. But this is a huge topic, especially when you talk about the land issue. I think, in my opinion, you should, I think, bring more people who can discuss the issue of lands actually from
Absolutely.
kutoka nyumbani and, you know, from here and explain their stories. Because, I mean, it's a huge topic that needs to be explored and kind of figure out how we can deal with it as diasporans and, you know, figuring it out ourselves from here and what we can do. And also there's this thing called Ardhi Sasa. I just had a comment with somebody and he was trying to figure out how the system works to whereby I'm supposed to go create an account.
Correct.
And then register my land.
Yes.
And here's the question. Why am I making this is what he was saying, why am I making it easier for the government to know my information? What are they going to do with it? And especially when I'm inputting it. If I'm going to put my LR number for my land, especially let's say LR 249, if someone else comes in and does that before I do, what is going to happen at that point?
Well, just the fact that you have registered the land with Ardhi Sasa doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the ownership records say, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Ardhi Sasa is supposed to be a tool that you use for you to go in, register yourself as citizen X, and then you tie yourself to land Y, and allows you to do things like make payments, whether it's land rates or land rent, whichever one it is, for that particular piece of property. But when it comes to ownership documents, it is not Ardhi Sasa itself, and the record that you inputted is not the master record of land, you know, that LR249. LR249 has a master record. And Ardhi Sasa
is the green card.
Yeah, yes. And then there's also the other records prior to the green card, right? And so just the fact that you have, it's an easy way for you to now go about paying all your taxes and dealing or having any dealings with the lands office as it pertains to that particular LR number.
Okay. All right. I think this topic
All right. Appreciate that.
It needs.
No problem.
Thank you,
needs
Sambaza.
And in that topic.
Yes.
That was all I had to say. Thank you so much, you guys.
All right, thank you, Sambaza. I think that this land needs a dedicated episode.
It does.
We need
Sure
to
does.
get someone who can give us value.
A
give
land
us
lawyer
value.
from Kenya. That's
Yeah.
what I would
Yes.
suggest.
This might even need more than one person because there's a lot of
There
moving parts.
there is a lot of moving parts.
And I always
yes.
tell people, when it comes to technology, as long as there's dishonest people in that system, technology, they will always figure it out and they'll always find ways around it. So, you know, let me read the comments faster here because we still have one more topic to cover and time is really running out. Esther Mulusa says, no, wait, before I get to Esther Mulusa, Udimadenge says, I think before there was the Greek Empire. I think
that was pertaining when you're talking about
before the Ottoman
Yeah,
Empire. Yeah. And then Esther says most Kenyans don't know that Kenya and Palestine were offered to the Jewish Zionists as choices to settle. Kenya lost by 1 vote and the Jews were given Palestine. Kenyan highlands would have been present-day chosen land. Yes, we already talked about this, Esther. I think you missed that episode. It was 2 weeks ago. It wasn't last week.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago.
It was the week before. You know, like what was called what's happening in Palestine could have been you. It could have been happening to Kenya.
Kabisa.
And then Udi Madenge, in reference to Saudi Arabia, the home of Saud was created and his kids became part of the inheritance. That's very true. And then Esther says, but Kenya used to trade with South Africa chini ya maji, like our master Britain, or rather chini ya meza, like our master Britain. Let me see. Slay says we need to rewrite our history. No, the history is there. It just needs to be brought back to life. And then Stephen Batty was just talking to us saying the one thing I noticed about these land issues, there's always a silver lining or somebody out there trying to do good for you. They may not go outside and say this is injustice, but they still plan to see the show that there is something that is there's something right going on. Okay, and then Stephen JJ here said, I inherited one of my dad's land. As soon as I fenced it in Siaya, some guy showed up claiming the land was his. Luckily, we know people and he was quickly extinguished. Land owning in Kenya. Anyway, I don't know what you mean by extinguished. That could mean anything.
It could have been taken out by those jammers who remove fences.
And you know, Stephen JJ has legendary stories. You know, like one of his stories.
Oh, he was the guy of Malakul Mount.
No, he was a guy. No,
watu wa kuja kumchukua kwa job.
No, watu wa FBI, yeah. So yeah, Stephen JJ, we actually need you. One day when we become rich, we'll be hiring you for stories. Once one mic show
he
starts
needs to go
making
check
money.
that fence of his. You know, they may have moved it.
Yeah.
They moved the fences, by the way.
The fences are moved.
Yeah.
But it seems like in a Stephen JJ, they know people there. And then Slay says renewing the lease for the land is also another loophole. You all remember the call and don't get shadow banned. Okay, all right, yeah, we hope we don't get shadow banned. And then Washeke says your forgiveness is why there is no accountability or justice. Akenyi says we are too forgiving, especially to those who are at the top of our social hierarchy. And then Evans Marube says very scary land ownership saga, especially for diasporans who toil many years just to retire in land dilemma. Slay says the whole Ministry of Lands needs to be cleaned. And then she says again, and not just the Ministry of Lands, all the corrupt individuals should be relieved of their duties, and there should be serious consequences for those who manipulate information at the Ministry of Lands. And Angie Decadence, karibu sana to the One Mic Show.
I thought we were going to get a cake, but
yes.
it's all good.
Yeah, you know, Angie Decadence gave us a cake. It was 10 years
10 years
ago.
It's
ago.
our 10-year anniversary of the
I can't
cake.
believe it's
Of the
been
cake.
that long. Yeah.
Ta imagine.
Yes.
Haya.
Yes, I can't believe.
Jeso.
Yes.
Yaregete.
Madhani.
Yes,
Hallelujah.
yes. I cannot believe.
Madhani aragachwa.
I can't believe it's that long. But I just want to remind the listeners again that you are tuned into the One Mic Show. And I'm your host and producer, Ali Badawi, and I have my panel with me here, Uno Mike and Amosh Fire. Now we're here talking about so many things: Kenya's history, mixed reactions of the royal tour by King Charles and Queen Camilla, and we later on in the show do a short recap, if we get time, of last week's interview by Brad Raw regarding Africa. So stay tuned for that and start dropping a few comments regarding what you thought about Brad last week. I remember Slay said Brad needs to be protected at all costs. So please drop your comments. Our lines are open. Number to call 202-683-4570. Press *5 to speak, and please save that number. But before we continue, Uno Mike, before we get on to our last topic of the day, which I know people are waiting for, KRA and harassment, airport harassment issue. Last Saturday, there was an epic boxing match between the world's heavyweight champion Tyson Fury and MMA fighter Francis Ngannou in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. The judges gave a controversial split decision to Tyson Fury, but a lot of fans felt that Ngannou won the fight. You'll remember that Ngannou knocked down Fury in the third round. Now, no, Mike, maybe this fight, from what you saw, and even you, Amosh Fire, what do you think this does for the future of boxing? As this was the world champion, the world heavyweight champion, being knocked down by an MMA fighter in his first professional boxing match. Uno Mike.
So the buzz was, and many conspiracy theories and many WhatsApp networks and whatever were saying that there's no way an MMA fighter would come in and would be given the decision, even if the fight itself was not a championship. The belts were not on the line.
Yeah.
But it showed that it is possible that, because most people were predicting that Ngannou will tire out.
Yeah.
Because of the way he was throwing, the way he's fighting, because then there are normally 3 rounds, 5 minutes. But we're talking about 3 minutes, 10 rounds, 3 minutes
each. Yeah.
3 minutes each.
Yeah.
Right? That's like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But no, and just throwing. So I think what was happening, well, not I think, but my personal belief was that if Ngannou had won, that would have put the sport of boxing in jeopardy. It already is, because it is not as popular as it was like during our times for Kina Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Akina Bruno, and Akina the British guy Lennox Lewis. And I think the last main captivating fighters were Manny Pacquiao and Floyd
Mayweather.
Floyd Manny Mayweather.
Yeah.
Right?
Bernard Hopkins.
And Bernard, the executioner.
But
Pacquiao, Floyd.
I mean, I'll go with Floyd anytime.
No, but I'm saying
in
at that
terms
time,
of-
those names, the names.
Yes.
The heavy hitting names.
Yes, heavy hitting names. I would guess so.
Now, for me, I think the transition of, I was curious to find out how he would have done, or how he would have fared when I look at someone like the other MMA guy that fought the white boy that fought Floyd.
McGregor.
Conor McGregor.
Yeah.
Oh,
McGregor.
Conor McGregor, yeah.
You know, and how he faded out towards the end, and he sort of just tired out and whatever. So I think if the decision had gone to Ngannou, it would have affected boxing. However, him doing what he did, dropping the world champion
like a sack of potatoes.
like a sack of potatoes, and that in itself,
and pulling some Afrobeat moves
that
when he was down.
and that in itself already put boxing like from emergency room to probably entering ICU.
You know, because all these great, all these great fighters were talking about how these great boxers were talking about how Ngannou will be crushed and how this was a big mistake.
Yeah, because it's a boxer.
It's a boxer.
It's a boxer in the ring, a pure boxer. Because
Not only a boxer, a heavyweight.
Heavyweight.
Correct. And then you have this guy who's come from MMA, who's used to, I guess, rolling in the.
And he hasn't fought for like I think a whole year.
And let's also understand that the guy who owns MMA, the KRA, did Ngannou,
wrong.
he did him
Yeah.
wrong.
The guy
did him
wants
wrong.
UFC, Dana White.
That guy,
Yeah.
Did him wrong.
that orange supporter guy, that
Yeah.
guy did Ngannou wrong.
But now look, Ngannou is the biggest guy in all of fight sports.
Yes.
Whether you call it boxing, whether you call
Whatever
it
it is.
he's the hottest commodity.
He's a draw.
And I think they haven't even confirmed, because this was supposed to be like a preview, a pre-show to Usyk's fight, Usyk and Fury in December, who was supposed to go back to Riyadh to fight. So this was just by the way, just entertainment. Get some celebrities.
Appetizer.
Do you think?
Let's see how things are gonna
Do you
be.
think that Fury will fight in December?
He was supposed to, but now
I
they've
don't-
not confirmed.
I don't see him fighting in December.
Now they've not confirmed.
After going through this,
yeah.
Let me tell you.
I don't see him fighting in
The
December.
way that Cameroon, that
Fury,
black African
That
man,
guy gave him some good body shots.
Because I
gave him
think
some
this
good stuff.
would have put, like that fight that they were that they were building up, the Usyk Fury fight, it puts it in jeopardy, because who knows what's going to happen. The other interesting thing I learned from Ngannou is that he said that Deontay Wilder is training for MMA.
Interesting.
So yes,
I
he's
can
been training for MMA.
I will pull an Ali here, and I will predict.
Mhm.
I personally believe MMA fighters can adapt well
to boxing,
boxing,
but not the other way around.
but not the other way around.
Because
Yeah, MMA is a skill set. It's a freaking
MMA is a skill
set.
set, and
It's a
MMA,
skill set.
I feel like it's one of those places where you can get killed. Because, in boxing, not saying that you can't get killed in boxing, but in boxing, there's no physical contact of the bodies. Because now, in MMA, in UFC, anything can come flying at you. It could be an
knee,
elbow.
a head.
It could be
yes.
anything. Anything could come
And by the
flying
way,
at you.
did you guys notice that it's ironical that Fury is the one who threw an elbow?
Yeah, I know. Fury, I think was also Fury was also in shock. Fury was in shock. at
Jama
what
threw
was
an
happening.
elbow.
Yeah.
You'd expect that of the MMA guy.
Mm-hmm.
But my belief is that Deontay Wilder in MMA. Let me say this. Let me wait and see.
I'd love to watch, but I think
I'm going to watch it.
Oof.
But if you go
Why
pound
doesn't
for
he-
pound with, let's say, the equivalent of, let's say, like an Adesanya, if they're the same weight class, Israel.
What weight class would Deontay Wilder?
Deontay is a heavyweight.
He would be heavyweight.
Yeah,
So that would be Ngannou.
So why don't they get in the ring together
with
and
Ngannou.
box?
I love Deontay
No.
Wilder.
You mean box or do MMA?
Box.
Who and who?
Deontay and Ngannou.
So that could be a possible fight.
That's a possible fight.
But then,
And
but then now,
I would take that thing to Vegas, and we are dividing that thing finje.
but you know what would be big right now? What would be big was a boxer coming to MMA.
that is it.
That would be
but
big.
translating translation ni ngumu, because at least unajua hapa ka MMA kuna ka wrestling,
there's some boxing,
kuna jiu-jitsu,
yes,
kuna
taekwondo hapa kidogo,
Yeah.
you know, there's kickboxing hapa
Muay Thai. Kuna kaudo.
getting all of those skills, forgetting the boxing and bringing those skills where you're doing the clutching, those how to get
grappling.
how to get out of a hold.
Yeah.
CG, I don't know. It's a skill, man.
I know. Maze, me
To
those
get
things.
out of those holds that jamaa mekushika hivi na mekuwekea knee, back, head and shoulders. At CG, then you do, I don't know, left, right, and there's an actual formula to it.
There's a formula
There's
to
an
it.
actual formula that if you roll left and you roll right, then you do what and you do CG.
Vile unaingisha kande box. Si wewe, but it's a skill set.
Okay.
Carry on.
Yeah. A couple of comments coming in here regarding this fight. First of all, let me see. Slay was asking, how does boxing work? Francis clearly knocked out the other guy. I agree with Slay.
So
I agree with Slay.
I agree with her. However, he was knocked down, not knocked out. If he was knocked out, then it would have been a different
But a
decision.
knockdown.
But a knockdown takes
A
out
knockdown
points.
is supposed to
Yes, it's
remove
supposed to take
points.
away points.
So what they are claiming is that even in that round, with the points that you get, it's like even if he won that round, the next couple of rounds he still didn't win.
How many rounds do you think Fury won out of the 10 rounds?
I'd say 4.
Okay. So
I would say 4, and I don't know.
Okay.
Uno, you watched the fight. We watched the fight together.
Okay.
Yes.
I would say,
Uno,
how many do you think that Fury won?
and even the people
out of
listening
the 10.
right now, even the people
three or four.
listening right now. So let's give him 4.
Okay.
Let's give him 4. So the guy, and
Okay, even
typically-
if we give him 5.
yeah. So typically, and even let's give him 5.
Yes.
So typically, the way this is scored, it's typically like if you lose a round, it's gonna be 10 to the winner and 9 to the loser. So
Or 8, depends on what you do.
so 8 is if there was a knockdown, for example. So you see, like in that round,
Yeah,
where
and I knew there was a knockdown.
where there was a knockdown, so he had a point taken away. So even if we give him 5 rounds, how in the world did those 2 judges, because it was a split decision, there was one judge, it was 2-1. One judge gave it to Ngannou, and 2 judges gave it to
And one of the
Fury.
judges was like 96-93.
96-93. I have a feeling that maybe a text might have come directly from MBS,
I think.
and they told them, hey, you guys, you're gonna mess up the fight here December.
A brown envelope.
Yeah.
No,
Or
but
maybe a Cabron
they
envelope.
had already been. There was no text. This thing they had been prepped.
But
Guys had already been prepped, and they knew, okay, wewe ikienda hivi watapiga hivi hivi watapiga hivi hivi na watapiga hivi.
You know why I think they had not been prepped?
Why?
Because this was a gone case. What everybody was saying, that Ngannou is gonna get killed.
Correct.
So I think like even the judges were just like, this is just gonna be
Another
easy scoring
payday.
fight. But then now they realized, as the fight was going on, they realized, jamaa wetu
kuna
anachapa.
ndiambo.
Kuna jamaa wetu anachapa.
And the guy went down.
Yeah, and he went down in the 3rd round.
He went down like in fact, me, I was like, this
Oh,
chap
man.
might not make it back.
Yeah, he went down in
He
the
went
3rd round.
down.
And by the way, several of those rounds, Fury alikuwa anatingishwa.
That's
he
why
was being
that's
rocked.
why I
He
was
being
saying
rocked.
that's why I was saying that if you're looking at it the way we were looking at it, and maybe we were looking at it as fans, and even if we're looking at it as fans and you're doing the point system and counting, like you hit jabs, blah blah blah, like maybe Ngannou supposedly was throwing things that are not point worthy, that's BS.
Haymakers.
That's BS.
Msee alikuwa anatingika.
That's BS.
No,
Because
the guy was shaking
he
him.
was hitting the guy.
Bro, he was hitting the guy.
As long as you're hitting the guy,
That's why
that's a point.
I think boxing needs to introduce VAR. They need to introduce VAR.
No,
they,
but no,
they need to have
why-
other VAR guys who go upstairs.
No, they don't need VAR.
If the scores, because seriously,
They don't need VAR. Remember the way they have punch stats, right?
Yes, they do.
CompuBox,
Yeah.
right? And punch stats, right? And you take that scrap, you feed it into the computer, and you tell it, okay, if this guy gets hit in this place, it's a 1. This guy gets hit here, it's a 1.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And then you see what that thing is going to give you versus what Omosh, Ali, and Uno are going to give. That
then why-
thing is going to give you
then
the
why,
correct
then
results.
why don't let the computer score? Why do we still have to have human intervention?
And again, that's that whole part of sports, right? Where you say, okay, we're going to have a ref.
Goal line
hold
technology.
On, hold on. We're going to have a ref. No. We're going to have a ref.
Yeah.
Even with goal line technology, they add VAR, right? And so then they're like, okay, VAR is going to overrule the ref,
Yes.
right?
So that's why I think there needs to be some
I-
VAR judges who could do.
and,
Who go upstairs.
But you see, the VAR judges, quote unquote, are not going back and checking every single point, unless there's a way that they were gonna do it AI like, where in round 1 you feed in the CompuBox and then it comes up with a number.
Man,
You get what I'm saying?
this fight was chebukated.
Of course,
Yeah,
it was
totally
It,
chebukated.
it totally was.
Wafungue server.
Yeah.
And according to a near generation, she says boxing's dignity as a sport has been cheapened based on the most recent business choices. She also says Dana White runs a slave camp.
Okay.
Atian Fury is eating too many Cheetos during training. I think near generation, I think you're bad.
Okay, and then Brown Sugar here says they couldn't let him win because of the upcoming
Of course.
championship fight, but we all know who won. Sleodor says Muhammad Ali too. I think it's when we were mentioning, all those boxers. And Angie says, one Mike Show People's Kamkunji crew, thanks. We'll discuss possibilities of a 10-year anniversary cake. So we are going to hold you to task.
That is it. Hii imeenda.
Yeah, and then Sleodwar says highlight sack of potatoes there. That's referring to Tyson Fury. And then Brown Sugar says he was trained by one and only Mike Tyson. I think she's referring to Francis Ngannou. And then she then says he brought out all them celebrities. Mbaka got our Wakale team. I don't know who exactly I think she's referring to Cristiano Ronaldo.
No,
Cristiano was also
Ronaldo was gonna be there. See the royal family nini. See yuko kwa mfuko.
Yeah. Yuko ndani kama
And
sisi.
then
In fact, I was wondering why Nani was not there. His teammate, Mane.
Oh man,
I
Sadio
was wondering
Mane.
why Mane. Even Neymar was not there
Okay, and then
because wako kwa region.
Brown Sugar says boxing.
Wako hapo tu.
Yeah, Brown Sugar says boxing fighter can't do MMA because it's mixed martial arts and full body contact and wrestling. And then Slay says it's the sound effects for me. I don't know. I don't know what sound effects Slay is
I
referring
think
to.
the oosh, oosh.
And then
Ama sound effects are tennis.
yeah. And then Evans Marube says what would be the outcome of Ngannou versus Joshua? The problem with Anthony
Joshua has a glass jaw. I'm sorry.
The problem with Joshua
Isn't
is
that
that
weight?
he has he has heavy hands, but he has a glass chin. If you get it, hata pia mimi nikimpata tu hivi kwisha. I knock him out. Mjukuu nikimpata tu hivi.
You had it here first.
Yes, nikimpata tu Joshua hivi vibaya. He has a glass chin. He has a glass chin, and that's how he was taken out by.
So why is
by
that?
Ramirez.
So why is that bad? You're saying that it would not work?
No, he has a glass chin. I think Ngannou would kill him.
Okay.
I think, I honestly, and you see the thing about Ngannou, what I learned about Ngannou from this fight is that he can take a punch.
Correct.
Yeah,
he can
Ngannou
take
can take a
punches,
punch.
not a punch. He
Yeah,
can take
he
punches.
can take a combination of punches.
I don't know if about punches in bunches, but he can take punches.
But he can take punches. He was taking them from Fury.
Yeah.
So
And Fury that out him. Straight up, Fury that out him until he woke up on the canvas third round.
yeah, I think
Because
that's when
I think he was told, just go in. This is an irregular fight. Use your reach, jab, move,
And
jab,
if-
move, and we get our payday. We get out of here.
If this would have been, let's say, Ngannou's maybe third, fourth fight, he would. You know how normally a fighter choppers a guy anaona unandogogyo.
And then it comes.
The guy comes now.
Yes.
The guy comes.
Yeah.
Mayweather. Zile za Mayweather za kumaliza.
If Ngannou
Yes.
angefanya hivyo.
He was not picking Killer Instinct.
No. He was
Because he also didn't know how this chap will react. So you also have to practice caution, and that's probably how he was taught. He was like, even though it's nini, don't necessarily go in for the kill, because jamani za kakufanya, maybe anakufanya rabadab ndio uingie ndio sasa kupige vizuri.
So I think Ngannou was fighting a world champion, so I think he was also very careful. But now that he's gotten his flow,
wasn't Mike Tyson his trainer?
Yes, Mike Tyson
so he had
was
been
one of
told,
his
boss,
trainers.
you usene kuniangusha huko.
Yes, Mike
Don't
Tyson
go
was one of his
madhogodhanio.
trainers. But then the thing is, his reflexes are very good for someone who's fighting his fast boxing match. And then he's just a very brave guy. You know, like there's no other way of putting it, because the way he was approaching the fight, you know, with boxing, you can tell by body language someone who's scared. He did not look scared. I mean, I think in his mind, you know, like when you're an African and you grew up, you know, like fighting in the streets, you know, like whenever you get into any fight, you get in with confidence. Like, hata kama jamani mkubwa, tutapelekana tu hivyo.
Kaende.
And I think that's what took Ngannou through the fight. Because me, I was constantly waiting. The first round, I was like, okay. And then the second round. And then when he got dropped in the third round, that's when I was like, I think we actually have a fight here.
I would like to see a Deontay Wilder Francis Ngannou in a boxing meet.
Now the thing with a Deontay, I love both fighters. The thing with a Deontay Wilder and Ngannou fight is that Ngannou can take a punch, and Deontay relies on that hook that he has, which can drop almost anyone.
And that is why.
But Deontay is fast.
Listen, and that is why
Deontay's
it would be
fast.
very nice to see it in action, bro.
In an MMA cage, I think Ngannou would cook him.
Of course.
Ngannou would cook
Let's
Deontay.
do boxing. Let's stick to boxing.
Let's just stick to boxing.
We gotta go, you know, pole. You know,
Kanyo.
Yeah.
Kanyo kade.
Yeah, and then Upper Brown Sugar Ambia Mjuku wants to fight Anthony Joshua like that Kanono guy. I think he's referring to what was the
I
other
think
guy?
Ramirez or something.
Not Ramirez. There's that. I'm forgetting his name.
The heavyweight guy.
The guy who beat Joshua.
Yeah, is he Ramirez? I think it's a Ramirez.
Is he called Ramirez?
Yes,
Let's find.
he's
Let's
Hispanic,
try to remember. He's Hispanic, but I don't think the guy who people were saying that he's a farmer. He's a farmer from Mexico.
Boss, that guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a guy.
That guy has a chin. That guy can take punches.
Yeah,
like
the
a
guy
nonsense.
can take punches. Yeah,
The guy was being rocked by Joshua. Msena kuja tu.
yeah, the guy can take punches.
The guy
Yeah,
was just coming.
yeah. So but my thing with Anthony Joshua, like nikiingia fight na if I land the punch first, that's it, knockout, fight imeisha hapo. But our problem ni if that punch doesn't land, I think I'm gonna be in trouble. But yeah, but anyway, this is gonna be very interesting, and we're gonna keep talking about this once we know. But the future of boxing is at stake. Whatever decisions are made between now and the next big fight, the future is at stake, because I also don't think Fury wants a rematch with Ngannou, with what we know now.
Well,
and with what we know now,
if I am him, I would take a rematch.
but now with what
There's
we
no
know
belt.
now,
So what difference does it make?
but you see, the thing is, a world champion of boxing being defeated by someone who's just started fighting boxing, that puts the whole sport into disrepute. I think the next fight with Ngannou should be given, I don't know who Ngannou can fight, but now I think all these other boxers are now also going to be scared of fighting Ngannou after what they saw, because you don't want to be that boxer who lost to an MMA fight.
And that is fine. Guess what? Maybe maybe he's a guy you need to be putting in the ring for a regular fight.
There we go. And
put him in to do if there's gonna be a champion who's gonna agree to a challenge, or they put him in to fight a couple of fights.
Yeah.
In under one of the belts.
Yeah.
And go for a belt.
Andy Ruiz.
Andy Ruiz, yeah.
Junior, yes.
That's what I was
Not
saying.
Ramirez, but it's one of those.
Yeah.
I'm not I'm not profiling.
Okay, fair enough.
They are couple in the vicinity.
In the area.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Maybe I end up picking an Ruiz.
Yeah. Slayer Nasema, he
Work his
maneno
way
ya.
up.
Now, Ruiz is the guy, you know, like I would not want to fight. Joshua would take my chances with, but Ruiz, that's a guy I would not want to fight. That guy, anybody mwenye anagongwa na anakuangalia, that's a person I would never want to fight.
Pengine alikuwa amepiga ndom zake.
I would never want to fight such a guy. Slay anasema hii maneno ya PPV ndo inaharibu, otherwise I would love to. But I think Slay doesn't know about fire sticks, but that's a topic for another day. It's not me who said it. It's not me who said it, but
shadow
but yeah.
banning.
But well, I think so much for boxing. We need to go to other news right now. And we know that the Kenya Revenue Authority has been on the spotlight over accusations of harassment of arriving passengers at Nairobi's Jomo Kenyatta International Airport. Now, there's been confusion over which goods are taxable, as lawmakers have joined Kenyans in protesting guidelines that seek to tax personal or household items worth over $500. We also have concerns about Kenyans who return home after living abroad on goods where the taxation status of goods they're bringing back is not known. Then there's the perception that Kenya Revenue Authority is targeting Kenyans and visitors from African countries while giving a free pass to people from other parts of the world. Now, again, I want to come back to the panel. I want to come to you, DJ Omosh, as you've been following this story. Are Kenyans maybe just crying wolf, or is this standard practice across the world to tax things that are above $500 when you're traveling? DJ Omosh Fire.
Okay, so some of us at least get to travel internationally one or more times a year. Especially going back home to Kenya, there's always a declaration form that you're given. Just maybe I would say you fill it out maybe within an hour of landing. So it's given to you in the plane, and then you'll fill it out. And if let's say you didn't fill it out, they're still also at the airport, and you'll fill them out because you would hand that form over to the customs officer.
Yeah.
And in that particular form, I forget what the form number is, but in that particular form, it actually tells you what the stipulations are. One of the things that it does say is that if you have any new items, that are above, $500, then you would list them. Now, I think it's the way you would decipher the form that may throw you off a little bit, because you do get an exemption for new items up to $500. So anything that you have that's above that $500 mark is what would need to be declared. Now, so what you would do ideally is declare everything. That's new. Are you with me? You declare everything that's new.
So you have two
with the value,
and you declare everything.
Correct. Because what happens is that you get $500 for the new stuff exempt. Are we together?
Okay.
Then whatever goes above that is what is then now taxable. And it's taxable based upon a couple of factors: the value that you have written and what these guys would perceive the value to be.
So they'll value it, right?
And they are valuing, you know how they do it?
How?
Google.
They go online.
Google is how they do it. It's not at the Jamas have at say, okay, well, this is at this, and then we do this, and this is this. Because let's say, for instance, Black Friday, nimepata mavitu, nimenunua vitu Black Friday, right?
Like a laptop.
It could be anything,
yeah,
right? So I may have paid $200 for that laptop, but that very same laptop, maybe retail value could come up as 500, but I bought it for 200. That means that it's actually eaten up my other 300 that I would have gotten for a new item. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I would be taxed on that laptop. Maybe now I would get taxed on the other things nimebeba. Zile nguo za watoto, zile maviatu, sijui, I don't know who.
How do they determine if clothes are new?
Again, here's the thing. Remember, the new versus old versus whatever, the exemption you get, your personal exemption, is that it's anything that is yours,
personal effects,
your personal effects that are used are exempt, period. Are we together so far?
So that includes electronics.
Correct. Are we together so far?
Okay.
So far, it's my stuff, Omosh's stuff,
yes,
right? And they are new. They are used. Okay, they are my personal things, and they are used. Okay. Now, new would be it's still sitting in a box and it's wrapped.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay? According to them, that's new. Now, new could also be that the iPad, which used to have a cover or is in a cover, and I may have got it a week ago, but it's still mine, they may determine, according to them, that that doesn't look used.
What do you mean an iPad with a cover? What exactly does
Okay,
that
like let's say, for instance, your iPad has a cover. So you know, most people have a wicker cover on their iPad.
Yeah.
Right? So I may have bought it last week or 2 weeks ago, and I went to Kenya today.
Yeah.
So it's still going to look new, whether it's covered or not.
What do you mean an iPad looks new? How can you look at this iPad and determine it looks new?
Okay. So you know, when you protect your stuff, when you remove that cover, the thing still looks new.
It still looks new, yeah.
Even with the phone.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
In fact, if you keep that cover on that phone, 4 years later, that thing is still going to look the same way.
It still looks new. So how are they
Unless,
determining that
you know,
this is
you've been
new?
dropping it, then the cover itself looks dinged.
Yeah.
But if I'm not looking at that, I can decide. And again, that's now where things can go south on you.
Mm-hmm.
They can decide that this thing is new.
Mm-hmm.
And you've just removed it from the box. And so you brought it in, and so that's new. So that's one way of looking at it. But what's supposed to happen is that your personal used items as the traveler are all exempt. So let's work with that. All your personal stuff is exempt.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's work with that.
So all your personal stuff that's new,
Yeah.
that's used is
Yeah,
exempt.
is exempt.
Right? Then now we go back to the question where you asked, how do you determine what's new?
Yeah.
Right? So you have kids' clothes there, right? They look at it and assume that
These are not your clothes.
these are not your clothes,
Okay.
so they must be new because they're not yours. Right? Unless you say,
This is so funny.
no, unless you say, hey, these were my toys, and now I'm bringing it to my nieces and nephew.
No, or they're my toys. They traveled ahead of me. Now I'm bringing their clothes.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Well, again, they don't have any labels on them.
Yeah.
They don't have any stickers. They don't have the newness normally would be determined by those sorts of things, right?
Yeah.
Or but they might look at them and say, "Apana, in my judgment, this looks new." Now, washing machine ya Kenyan ya nini zinawasha, you know, sabuni different.
Yeah.
So hata kama I bought it 3 years ago, but
It still looks new.
inakanika ni mpya, haijachapa,
Yeah.
jo ijapigwa na jua. So again, that's something that then now that $500, that exemption that you're given, would be added for these particular items that fall outside of your own personal used stuff. Once you hit 500, anything above that, including jewelry, including perfume, including things that
So it's alcoholic beverages,
including alcohol, whatever,
cigarettes and tobacco, electronic goods, jewelry,
yes,
watches,
yep,
clothing and footwear, perfumes and cosmetics, and food items.
So now, and in fact, now when you think about it, even like food items, right? Let's say I was at duty free and I decided I wanted to get what food items would you buy there? Chocolate. Normally you get those crazy requests like, can you bring me candy or something like that?
Yeah.
And you forget and you're like, so at duty free you pick up some candy or whatever it is, and maybe you pay like, I don't know, 10 euros for it, right? And it's still in the duty free bag. Remember, they're still going to count that, right?
Wow.
And then you have you found a watch on sale, so you purchased the watch. Maybe that watch is $200,
Yeah.
or it's $150.
But you got it for $30.
It doesn't matter. Whatever you paid for it
Yeah.
versus the value. You see, and that's the other thing. Whatever you paid for it versus the value. Because they look at the thing and assuming if it's still in the duty-free bag, then it's new. So even if you say it's yours, it's still new. So it's no longer exempt.
So even the fact that you bought it at a place called duty free.
Duty-free is exactly that. You bought it without any duty on it. But it doesn't mean that when you're entering the country with it, they don't count it as new because it's new and it's not exempt.
Yeah, let me go through some comments here because this is just been a very confusing topic. And a lot of people have been complaining about this.
And the reason why they were complaining,
Yeah.
before we go there, is because prior to KOT going up in arms, there was I think it was a tweet from KRA that said that as you're coming in, anything above $500
is subject
is
to tax.
subject to tax.
Yeah.
What they did not clarify was that there was that your used personal items are already exempt. Then you have a $500 exemption, and that's where it said anything above for new.
Okay. All right.
You see, and
Yeah.
that's where the confusion came in, because they had already started enforcing those types of things, where basically once it hit the 500 mark, the first thing they'll go for is the phone. So they'll give you 500 on what's in your suitcase.
Yeah.
But then your phone, if I've given you 500 for the
So if
suitcase,
you're one of those guys who carries 5 phones, then
it doesn't matter.
problem.
Even your phone, it's above 500. Right? So think of this way. Your phone is above 500.
Yeah.
All the things that are in your suitcase, right? So this is the old law, the old rule, before they clarified. So everything that's in your suitcase, they'll say that's 500. Let's just say. But then they go for that kicker, your phone. It's above 500.
Okay. All
So
right.
then now they'll tax you on your phone.
Okay.
And
all
they'll
right.
tell you this used phone, give us 100K.
All right, so Stephen JJ here says taxation should start at 1 million shillings. And then Brown Sugar Nasema, no, this is Slayer Nasema, this is not standard practice. I don't think it is. And then Stephen Batty says, I have a friend who just landed in Kenya today and said it was smooth sailing. I guess they are laying low due to pressure. And then I have Patrick's here. Karibu sana to the One Mic Show. He says, this taxation thing is not new. KRA customs officers had been at JKIA for years. They had been lazy, and many times they don't bother to check incoming passengers because whether they check or not, they still get paid. The active are usually looking for bribes, not taxation. If they ever stop you, don't ever give the real value of the items. Just like other countries, they are expected to stop passengers randomly. Can't stop everyone though.
They don't stop randomly, and guess what? With the directives they had been given, and I don't know how that much they're doing it now. Your luggage gets scanned, and us guys, when I say us guys, I'm saying like us here on the show. We go to Kenya, I would venture to say once a year.
Yeah.
And the first thing is that your regular luggage, your 2 suitcases, are scanned when they get off the plane before they get on the conveyor belt for you to pick them. X marks the spot.
Yeah.
Meaning, if they see something
They
in
mark
that
an
scan,
X on the
they'll put a
suitcase.
nice X on your suitcase. So you'll go and you'll grab your stuff and you put it on the cart, right? And then you have your regular hand luggage, whatever it is, and you have your backpack, I'm assuming, or for ladies, you have a handbag or whatever it is. And you're now walking towards the gate, right? As you approach the gate,
They apprehend you.
as you approach the gate, the first thing you have to do is you have to take your hand luggage and put it through the scanner, the X-ray scanner that's right there, right? And whatever is seen in there is relayed to the customs officer, because the X-ray guy is separate from the customs officer. That would be relayed to the customs officer and told, by the way, hapa ndani kuna iPhone. And I'm saying that because it happened to me. I had a brand new iPhone in my hand luggage. Unbeknownst to me, that this enforcement that they're doing now, or that people are complaining about, they were doing then. I didn't know. It was still in the box. It was still wrapped with everything. It new. When I say new, that thing was new. Shwa, right? Had not been opened.
Kagoanga.
Right? So I was victim 001. I didn't know. Now, I did not have the X on my bag. So there's nothing they saw in my bags that required for them to actually mark them with an X. So if they do see something in your bags, then they'll mark with the X, and that's so you'll be pulled over if that X is there. The customs guy is going to pull you over. And then if your scanned bag, hand luggage, or your backpack has something of interest to them, especially those small electronics, the phones, the iPads, the whatever, something that's brand new that you've carried on your person close to you, right? That's still boxed up or whatever the case may be. Then they will let that guy know. So that guy pulls you over and tells you to open your stuff.
All right. So Slay here says it's not new and it's so if it's not new and it's personal, they will still Google. That's a question she's asking. And then
no.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. She said if it's not new.
If it's not new and it's personal.
If it's new and it's personal.
Yeah.
Then.
So if it's not new, they will not.
If it's not new, they should not.
Okay.
If it's not new, they should not. Meaning it's used.
Okay.
It's your personal used items. They should not bother you.
Okay.
But whatever you have that's new, you have a $500 limit, and that's the thing that people have to remember. That whatever you're carrying, you may have purchased them for $100 or $150, but when they value it, it could be more than.
Okay, and then Esther says
that 500.
Esther Mulusa says it's a pity KRA is targeting diasporans going home and travelers doing business. I don't know why tourists have a voice after they cried out. These KRA officers are untrained. I have been harassed in the past by a corrupt airport official. Their discretion is wanting.
Correct.
Yeah, and then I think you've also, you've also talked about the clothes. Slay was asking about clothes. And then Patrick says, not much has changed. KRA is either more aggressive or enforcing the guidelines unlike previous governments. So
they're more aggressive
as
well as enforcing. And the way that they were enforcing was not based upon law. It was based upon whatever their discretion was.
Whatever their intuition.
It was based upon A, they have targets, and B, there is also toeni kitu kidogo. So there's a double target. There's the target from KRA, and then there's the target from those people who are saying, you work here, we need to be getting X in a day.
Okay, and then Washeke says duty-free will be taxed. So duty-free will be taxed too.
Yes.
That's a confusing part.
Yes. No, duty-free is, it means you're not paying tax at the source. That's what duty-free really means.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that at the point of entry, you're not going to pay tax on it.
Okay. And
based upon
yeah,
these guidelines that they're giving us, because duty-free is new.
And then Esther is asking, how does KRA justify travelers paying airport tax, duty-free taxes, and VAT still get flagged? Zakayo is too much. And then Washeke says the bottom line is Kenyans will find alternate ways to come to Kenya, and the government will lose out. We will now be landing in Tanzania as port of entry and maybe skip Kenya altogether. Now the question is for people who, frequent other countries, because I've heard some people saying that this is standard practice. Is this what happens when you go to other countries, as a visitor? Like, for example, I've gone to Tanzania multiple times, never experienced this. I don't know. Is this something that...
Again, remember, these are things that are happening for international flights, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've landed in Tanzania as an international passenger.
No. Again, I'm talking about in Kenya, right? This is for international, not quote-unquote domestic. Now, when you land from TZ, I don't think you're landing in the international side where you have...
no, you are.
Which gate is it? Because there's you know that the KQ flight from here doesn't land in the same gate that our regular flights that we take land.
I think KQ has its own
correct.
KQ has its own terminal.
Na hao watu hawasumbuliwi.
KQ has its own terminal.
How are not being sumbued like these chaps on this side?
So it's foreign airlines.
I'm telling you, brah, it is where it is.
But I don't know, I think people maybe just need to talk about the experiences.
Again, I have folks on the ground who came in from the KQ side and have come in from KQ side, and as long as they're coming on KQ side, they're not harassed.
So people go to New York.
Correct.
Yeah.
That was then. Now you don't have to do it. As you've heard, there's people who have landed recently as today. And it's because it's now on everybody's mouth, and there's a directive that was issued. See, prior to this directive that was issued, they had said that it was all items, whatever it is, it doesn't matter whether it's new or used, your exemption was 500. Anything above that, you pay. And that's why I was saying that it would make sense. I'll let you go with everything in the suitcase.
Okay.
But whatever you're carrying in your hand, your 2 phones, and they're 2 iPhones, they are over 500, and now that's what we're going to tax you on.
Okay, let me go through the comments. We're running out of time. Washeke says if diasporans boycotted and stopped sending remittances, they would listen to us. But the problem is we are not united. And then
who would listen to us? How do we do that when you say that we're not united?
Washeke, talk to us. Tell us about that.
Yeah, we need action. We don't have a rep.
Yeah. So Slay says most people send remittances to their families. What happens to the person who is supporting their families back in the 254? That's why I've always felt like this thing of let's freeze our remittances, that will just never work, because people are sending to their families. It's your families. When you don't send remittances, it's your people who are starving. Maybe the government may get hurt, but your families get hurt more. So I just don't see.
Your families are harder.
And then Esther nauliza ulikuwa unapelekea nani brand new iPhone? Iyo Mosh, you're gonna answer that.
Esther, see me behind the tent. Kwa nini tunaongea hizo story hapa nje na unajua mimi ni mtu ambaye nafaa kuenda Kenya December, alafu mtu aweka hapo target waseme huyu ndio ule msee alikuwa anaongea vibaya juu ya story za KRA. Please.
And then I hope KRA is not listening.
We are very good citizens. We will give you ushuru ya 0.
So Stephen Batty says, so people like Sambaza who go to podcast and carry recording equipment have issues. They will look for them. That's very true.
Now, again, you see that even, and that's also a very interesting thing that you bring up. Even the Kenyan, let's say the Stephen Batty who lives in Kenya has left Kenya and he has gone to Ethiopia for an assignment. He's going to leave Kenya possibly with $500,000 shilling worth of equipment or more, right? And then he's coming back in with it. Somebody decides that, guess what? These things are new and umepita ile limit.
Umepita $500.
The only key to it is that prior to exit, declare what you left with so that you come back with same.
Yeah, and I think when you purchase anything...
there is a declaration form when you're leaving, especially for Kenyans who are in Kenya who are leaving and are coming out for work, whatever it is, umebebana na hizo laptop zako, umebebana na iPad and all those things. Andikisha hizo vitu zote on the declaration form when you're exiting, so that when you come back in, that same declaration form that you filled out will act as your gateway pass to come back in, so you don't get charged for the very same items you left with.
Okay, Omosh, wacha nimalize hizi comments. We are running out of time. But Stephen Batty saying, according to the dude that was on Spice FM, they have a quota and pressure from the bosses. Imagine if you have a job on the verge of losing it because of the quota, you will harass people because you have power.
Correct.
And then Patrick says, 100% agree. They rarely target whites. They are intimidated by whites. They are more likely to target blacks with U.S. passports than anyone else, whether in a friendly or aggressive manner. Washeke says this week there was someone who lost their personal iPhone to KRA at the airport. So yeah, I think this is one of those topics that I wish we had.
I don't think that person lost it this week. They left it in the airport last week or prior to all of this coming in, and then now coming back to pick it up on their way out. That's what ended up happening. They could not pick it up because it disappeared.
Yeah, what I'd like to know, and Uno Mike, I don't know what our experiences are in other countries, like people who frequently visit other countries. I think this is where Mika would have helped us if he was here today. Is this a normal thing?
It's normal for you to have to declare and to write your stuff, but for you to the point where somebody's sitting there and counting pennies, it's not normal. I mean, I know going to Jamaica, going in, there's a declaration that you make.
Yeah.
But to be honest, and remember, Jamaica is a tourist destination. For a lot of us, for a lot of people, Mexico, you're going in and you don't feel that this harassment that these Jamas do, you're not feeling it. And for us guys, we feel it double because we are coming back as people are coming back home. At the same time, we're still tourists.
But do you think...
But they don't look at us that way.
Yeah, but do you think this is going to affect visitors who want to come.
100%.
I think it's even going to affect diasporans who want to go home in December.
So people are going to change their
They
mind.
will. They may possibly change and say, bump that. I'll do Mexico or I'll do some other place. And I'll take when these guys change stuff, I'll go a different way.
Or alternatively,
I can see them actually, I can see people actually doing that because folks here have a very short fuse.
or alternatively, travel plans in terms of what you're going to carry will change. You know, like of course, for like now, for example, if let's say like, you know, you work remote. No, and a laptop.
Yeah.
Because that's your work.
That's your work laptop.
That's your work
yes.
laptop,
Uh-huh.
right?
But it's
considered a
that's
personal item.
considered a personal used item.
Yes, it's a personal use item. So like now you have a laptop, you have an iPad, right?
Yes.
And you have an iPhone.
Yes.
And chances are you've got two because moja
Near job.
ni ya job.
Yes.
Hii ingine ni yako
Correct.
ya now local.
Yes.
Local use, right?
But it's still a personal used item.
Okay.
Both are still
So
considered
who's
personal.
So
used
like
items.
now-
So where's the burden of proof?
So
is the burden of proof with you?
Because now let's say for example, like now if let's say for example, I have a phone for Aiden. Niko na kasimu
Yes.
kake.
Yes.
Hii naenda kumpatia si tayari nakuuza.
Yes.
Ye itamarwa.
But it is used.
It is
Remember?
used.
It is used.
It's not brand new.
It is used.
Yes. So me, I would say this.
Again, it is used. You see, and that's the thing where
not brand new.
Again, correct. It is used, and that's the key. This is my personal item that I am using. Okay,
But
it doesn't
if it's-
have,
but-
and
but
it's
I
not
think-
turned on because I am going to get my SIM card and put it in here in this one.
Yes.
And I'm going to have two lines.
But I think
one for
Omosh-
Safcom, one for Airtel.
But
So
I
I'll
think
have two
Omosh-
phones.
Almost what's not clear
Correct.
is who has the burden of proof to
We-
prove.
and that-
Where's
and
is the
they
burden of
don't-
proof
they,
with the KRA officials, or if I tell them these three phones are mine, and then they just agree, yes, they're yours.
They simply say, and this is on their website, okay? It tells you there's a document called clearance of at passenger terminals, okay?
Yeah.
And they say for passenger clearance at terminals, KRA informs the public as follows: clearance of personal items / effects. All used personal items / effects are exempt from customs duties. Okay. Now they do not say how they are tabulating that thing. Now they do have a section here called determination of duties, meaning whatever duty you would pay. Where imported goods are subject to customs duty, a passenger is required to self-declare the actual price of the items. The duty to be paid, if any, shall be based on the actual purchase price as declared by the passenger / traveler. All passengers are thus required to declare the specified items in the passenger declaration form, which is that F88, prior to arrival in Kenya. A passenger has a right to query the assessed customs duty and may seek an explanation from the customs officer. But they don't say how they determine. Well, they say that determination is based upon you doing a self-declaration, right? Now, if somebody is saying that they don't believe you, that's another story, and you have the right
I think
to,
that's what's
Yeah,
not clear.
because let's say-
because if I say these three iPhones are all my iPhones, does it end? These are my personal effects.
Yes.
Does it end there, or
It's supposed to.
Okay.
It's supposed
But
to.
then the KRA officials now
Now it's at their discretion.
That-
where
that-
sasa hapo ndio-
that's
and-
their discretion
yes,
part is up.
correct.
Because how do they?
It clearly states all used personal items / effects are exempt from customs duties, and there's nothing that says I can't have 10 phones.
That's right. Yeah, and that's
Right?
that's
and
where,
but the
yeah.
whole point of it from their perspective is that why would somebody have 10 phones? Because I want to have 10 phones. They're my phones. I can do what I want.
But we're
with
not
them.
even talking about 10
Right?
phones. I can
But-
understand 10 phones, but someone who has like 3 phones, it's very normal to have 3
yes,
phones.
it is very
your
normal.
work phone, your personal phone, and your phone that you're using a Safaricom SIM card on. It's
Correct.
very normal.
And again, assuming that I also want to have, both Airtel and Safaricom, then I'll have 4.
Yeah. So that's where, like this thing becomes so confusing because it seems like those KRA officials are becoming adjudicators. You're
Yes.
telling them one thing
Yes.
and they're telling you no.
Yes.
No, this shirt is brand
But
new.
that's
It's not,
because
that's what they were doing before, and now after this, I'm curious to know for people who have traveled this week after all the noise, what has been the what's happened, and we already had that one person, at least we had one, traveled and it was smooth sailing. Now, is it that they'll just do this until people keep quiet and then they go back to Division 1 again, I don't know.
December.
Yeah, we have some people here who will travel,
So
so we'll find out.
Stephen JJ says, Ama, you guys just say no. I don't have anything to declare. Hiyo figa huwa hapo. And
you see, here's the problem.
Yeah.
If you do not declare, because you see this thing, also that's the thing that they say, that for the exemption is going to be for items that you declared. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Meaning, if you didn't declare them,
then they can tax
then
them.
now they can say, hizi zote, akuna vile uli declare, so you even that 500, so tano, akuna juu kusema.
Okay. All right. So, Esther Mulusa, why do KRA assume we have money all the time when you travel? On declarations in the U.S., my Farmer's Choice sausages were confiscated at Dallas airport and I was fined $300 on the spot. Oh, my goodness. And this is the same airport I've been using to get in.
So, Esther, see me on the side.
Yeah, so that's a different
see me on
law.
the side. Hapo hiyo Dallas.
That's a
kuna
different
vile
law.
tunajua watu na kuna vile unaweza ingisha hizo vitu hata kama ni hiyo so tatu. Anyway.
No, I know people who've been fined. So maybe
no,
it's not
the
on the
fining
extra.
is, and again, the fining is also at the discretion of the officer. That's another thing that even though they find you with that stuff, it's at their discretion.
Okay, so let me finish what Esther wrote. She says that's a different law on carrying processed goods, but people from the third world are targeted. I know
that is very true.
This is out of topic, but it's about the airport inequities. That's fairly true.
Yeah.
And then
we are
Washeka says
targeted.
this new rule is open to abuse, and Slay says the need to tighten the loophole and clearly state how duty is to be paid will be determined. Then Stephen Batty says, Estambulusa, $300 for sausages, $100 or less than that. And then Patrick says, also, if you're entering the USA, cigarettes more than 200 will be taxed, even if it's for personal use, also alcohol. So that's good to know. And Stephen Batty says, funny, you come to USA, they make you feel like you're coming home. It took me less than 5 minutes with global entry. I scanned my face and photograph, and then the customs and border official just called my name and said, welcome back, Mr. Batty. Patrick's, why will you need 25 pairs of shoes? As for personal use, people, let's be realistic. Oh, Patrick's, I think, ni mtu wa KRA.
No, it's okay. I mean, what do you mean by why would you have 25 pairs of shoes?
No, he's asking why would you have 25
because
pairs of
I
shoes?
want to have 25 pairs of shoes and I can afford to buy 25 pairs of shoes. So you should determine to me.
He disagrees with you.
If he decides that he wants to wear
One
one
pair a day.
if he wants to
day,
decide,
every other day.
yeah, I may want like,
Nataki kurewind.
Yeah.
Of course.
Kaende.
Nimetoka maju. Utajuaje nimetoka maju?
Yeah, or maybe I'm a content creator. I want to have different shoes.
No.
on my
I'm
content
just
every day.
saying, because when I hear him say something like that, to me, I'm like, I even question where he's coming from when he says that, and maybe he's being facetious.
No, I think
Facetious.
no, I think he's looking at things from the side of the revenue authorities.
The revenue authorities need to understand that personal items, or should I say personal used items, or what is considered personal, is not the same for everybody. So you cannot judge people based upon whatever it is that you guys have as this line, where you say one person, one phone, one person, 2 pairs of shoes. Anything above that, it's not personal.
Okay, and then Esther says, I will fly to Shimalavandu, Kakamega, via Uganda. I don't have I don't have time for this.
You know, Kakamega, they started flying it was earlier this year.
Okay.
I think it was earlier this year. Yes. There's flights to, you can fly to Kakamega now.
And there's some
5K.
There are some beauties in Kakamega.
Yeah,
5K.
and then Brown Sugar here is giving an interesting comment to Patrick. Patrick says, fashion every dress with its shoes. And I know women do that all the time.
If
like
you're
they
going to
have
be
shoes.
home
for
25 days, sure.
Some people go home for 2 months. So yeah. So
it depends on mfuko yako.
Yeah. And then Slay says, as someone who has done customs brokerage, there are certain things you may not be able to bring into the US. Hiyo ya cigarettes is true. And then Steven J.J. anasema hiyo ya sigara kwa sababu ya sigara za Cuba. And then Washeke says women don't need any excuses to have multiple pairs of shoes. And then Steven JJ anasema personal items sigara za 200 na lika hiyo yote surely hapo ni biz. And then Patrick says if you have 30 pairs of shoes then they will tax whatever they want. Real quick before we end the show, last week's interview, Uno Mike, I'm gonna come to you. Brad, just quick thoughts, 2 minutes.
Eye-opening. On top of that, you start looking at things from a different angle, looking at the glass as half full, not half empty, potential, and also joke a joke.
Joke a joke.
Joke a joke.
Yeah.
I think sometimes to have one, be it a laptop bag, a satchel, a computer case, or a suitcase, then I'll listen to you, comment, give feedback. But if you're like an armchair quarterback, I won't skiza. But I think Brad gave. It would be. I sort of wanted to see, or it's one of those you want to. You would hope that what he's talking about, how he's addressing things, you could sort of copy and paste, and it would be happening in Kenya. But I think with so much madhogodhanyo going on, especially like with land, I think maybe we just need to stop thinking of Nairobi only. We need to expand. Pokot, Kilifi,
Yeah.
Just go outside. I think Nairobi is not the only place. So I think it's one of those, and like we said, it's like sometimes it takes
Somebody from outside.
Somebody from outside.
Yeah.
For you to be able to see, or to view things from a different lens, get a different perspective,
and to view the value you have that you take for granted,
to appreciate.
Yeah.
To not only to see it, but also to appreciate the value. Like, and you know what? Damn. Because like when you listen to someone like Afro-Jamaican, you're like, what is this guy seeing that I'm not seeing?
Exactly.
What is Brad seeing that I'm not seeing? And you know what? Let me be in those networks. Let me be in there so that I can open my eyes, because I think we need to open our eyes.
Okay. Omosh fire.
Uno said it all. All I can say is I'm glad that somebody else other than us sees what there is in Africa, and you can copy paste what he said for Ghana and Ivory Coast, to Kenya, to South Africa, to Uganda, to Tanzania. It's going to be the same. There may be some things here and there that are a little bit off, but I hope people are listening and realizing that we have a gem in our home that is Africa, and especially whatever your mother country is. And so it's time that we, as the insiders, invested internally in our areas, as opposed to letting somebody else from outside come and invest and then turn around that investment and make it such that we ourselves can't invest in that investment. They'll price us out, basically. So to me, that's what I'm taking out of it. Go in now while the going is there and while you can do it. And don't listen to that adage that you cannot invest or appreciate your own. You can, and it's possible. And so just try to figure out how it's going to work with your day-to-day and regular life.
Now, to me, the most compelling thing that Brad said, of course, he's been investing in West Africa, in Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. But despite the fact that he had so much excitement and hype about West Africa, he still said, I don't know whether you guys noted this, he said that Kenya has a higher growth potential than any of those West African countries.
Correct.
And this is despite him being there, and you can tell he's someone who is very familiar, very deeply familiar with a lot of things happening in the continent.
Yes.
That he was even talking to us about fishermen, like something that even those of us who are in the weeds of what's happening, like back home, we would not know about that.
Negotiations.
Yes.
I didn't even know, like,
Fishermen
yeah.
negotiating, you know, like we would not know that.
Yes.
So to me that was quite compelling. And what he told me, like I've always said, you know, like in as much as I highly encourage people to fast, you know, like exhaust, you know, like the options they have here, you know, like their 401ks, make sure that you've minimized how much taxes you're paying and everything, and index funds. I always tell people I'm not one of those people who will say never invest in Kenya, because you know there are those never invest in Kenya, maybe because of a bad experience they had. I think the problem is not investing in Kenya, but the problem is how we choose to invest in Kenya. We have a hard mentality.
Buroti, makuta, makuta.
There you go. We have a hard mentality. We go for mafuroti and apartments.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's nothing wrong with that.
You can farm.
Yeah,
you
absolutely.
can rent
But-
land and
but-
farm.
But this
Agreed.
this mafuroti and the Airbnbs and the rentals, they have a lower return than what you can get passively here in the US. So the key homework that you have to do is find out what are these other investment opportunities that have high returns, because Americans are there, the Chinese are there, Arabs are there, Indians are there. So that means these
There's
opportunities are out there, and we just don't know exactly where they are. The one thing that I learned, you know, like when it comes to real estate, the money is not in purchasing a unit and renting it out. The money is getting involved in development. Develop, you know, like take part in a development, even if it means combining with a couple of other people, sell them. That's when you're gonna get high returns. That's where you might invest like maybe 100 million, and then within 2-3 years you're able to sell all the units and you have 300 million. You can triple, you know, like the money you have, but you're not gonna triple the money you have within 3 years by, you know, like doing Airbnb. And no shade to anyone who's doing that
Before they come for you.
Yeah, it's just that I've done analysis, but especially when you're buying cash, it just doesn't make sense. You can make more money here by leaving that money in an index fund, and it will make you more money than this active investment where, you know, like you're paying expenses for here and there, and it's also active, meaning you've hired someone, you're following up with them, you know, was the house cleaned, nanini. Nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying these investments that Kenyans go for in Kenya, diaspora Kenyans go, hard mentality, these do not have, you know, the higher returns. There's investments in the energy sector, renewable energy, agribusiness, development, and I think that's where we have to start thinking. And I think the issue with these other investments, they may need bigger capital, and this is where we can decide to come together. You know, like if you cannot raise, for example, $500,000, you can come together, you know, like 20 people, and each of you raises $25,000. And guess what? We have precedent. The Somalis are doing it. All these buildings, all these skyscrapers that you're seeing in Isli, it's a number of Somalis in Minnesota who've come together, put the money together, and that's why they're able to do such large projects. And those are the ones that have those returns that Brad was talking about. And I think that's just where we need to put our minds. And with that said, this is it for tonight. I want to thank our amazing audience, and to any of the new members. I saw some new people today. Please make sure you follow us: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. Binge on our content, and let us know what you think. Mimi ni wenu Ali Badawi aka Mjukuu wa Masai, and you tuned in to the One Mic Show. Uno Mic, on to you.
Wahenga walinena, kilicho na mwanzo hakina budi kuwa na mwisho. Meli imetia nanga. We are about to wrap this puppy up. Almost fire DJ Machachariga there. KRA Shmi. Budabas.
Yes, to our audience, asanteni sana. And guess what? It's coming up to Thanksgiving. Sijui tumemalizana na Halloween. Well, we thank you guys for being there with us each and every Friday. And kwa hayo mambo machache, tutaonana wiki ijao, au sio?
All right, asante sana DJ Mosh. Reminding the listeners, we have 3 episodes to go. 2 full episodes and 1 recap episode. So start practicing on withdrawal symptoms. Start trying to find out what you're going to be doing on your Fridays. You know, like next week, Mike, who are we having next week on the show?
So next week, we shall be having my niece.
Does she have a name?
Rehema. I was getting there,
Okay,
boss.
all right,
Relax.
She's
Rehema.
she's his niece.
Ngobu. And with her, they want to start a podcast. And we shall be discussing this. This is like the umbrella topic. Growing up in an African household.
How old is she?
She's 19.
Okay.
So, and she was born actually, and I'll retell this story, and she really hates it, but it was 2003, December. Jamal Lewis was about to break that record, December 28th. She came into the world. Next week, challenges. It's ideally the challenges, you know, she's Kenyan American, but she's American, but she's Kenyan, but growing up in a household, the challenges, the back and forth, Kenyan parents, American child, 2 worlds collide. Anyway, it's gonna be interesting.
It's gonna be an interesting episode.
And her friend is from Nigeria, so
okay. So
probably they also go.
So
they
the
go through the
Nigerian
same
friend
thing.
is also gonna
Yes.
be in studio.
Yes.
Okay.
So we can ask her about Kenyan music and who she knows.
She probably does. Yes.
Is the friend also? Is she also Nigerian?
No, he is Nigerian.
Oh, he-
he was. They've been here. They
Oh,
the
yeah,
time that
yeah,
they
okay,
came.
okay,
Yeah, the two that
okay.
came.
All right.
Yeah. So it's gonna be interesting.
Okay, that's gonna
So
be an interesting
keep it
episode.
locked. Get
So
your
keep it
kids,
locked.
your teenagers.
That's gonna be on November the 10th, and then on November the 17th, Jane Mukami closes the year for us. You all know who Jane Mukami is?
Are you sure?
Yes, Jane Mukami.
It's confirmed.
Yes, she's
Locked and
currently in
loaded.
Kenya. She's currently in Kenya, but
Ule fitness nini?
yes, Jane Mukami.
But sasa now as guys, sisi watu wa vitambi, how do we come to the studio na
very
kula
loud.
mtu?
Well,
Hapana, wewe si sasa umekuwa kanini.
well, you know, Jane Mukami. You know,
I'm
like-
gonna wear my nini. I'll wear the other big clothes. So
Your
I look-
outfit.
Yes, I look.
Okay.
So
Yes.
I look.
So she's gonna close. She's gonna
event.
close the year for us. So only these guys who waited with us until the end of the episode, we're gonna start giving this, you know,
Juicy
like
tidbits.
this, you know, like treats at the end of the episode, as a treat for those who stay with us to the end. But yeah, I wanna thank again all the listeners. Even as we draw close to the year, we also gonna miss you. You know, like when that time comes, and I see, you know, like comments are still coming in thick and fast. Watu wataki kwenda. You know, people wanna stay here. I know we could easily stay here for another hour, but we're gonna give a chance for people to go and be with their girlfriends, with their boyfriends, with their families, with their clandes or whoever they're with. So kwa hayo machache, yeyote ambaye anataka kunipigia simu, nambari yangu bado ni ile 1-800 mteule, na operator akishika simu mwambie unataka kusema na mjukuu, na akikuuliza ni mjukuu yupi, mkumbushe ni mjukuu yule wa Masai, because I'm Kenyan by blood, American by design, Masai by choice. Sichagui, sikagui na sibagui. Kwaherini.
Before I maliza, Dr. James Omanwa, big shout out. And by the way, Caleb and Max, man, musituangushe kesho.
Oh yeah, championship.
Yes.
Congrats. Yeah, they got this. They
Musituangushe
got this.
Championship.
soccer.
Soccer.
U10 and U14. So Caleb is in U14. That's the oldest son. Then Papa Max, the second born, he's having a game. I think he's U10. Anyway, the games are musituangushe. Jembo, ebu afikisha hiyo ujumbe.
9 and 3, right? 9 in the
9
morning.
9 a.m. and 3 p.m.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aiden, Daddy loves you. Jerry, Daddy loves you. Nemo, Daddy loves you. Until next week, be blessed.